All right, losers. You know who else started stream 5 minutes early? Your mom. I don't know how to do the voice, really. I haven't actually watched that much regular show. I'm a poser. I need to. I keep thinking I should. I just wasn't one of the shows that I watched. What's up? How y'all doing? Where's Kitty? Somewhere in the house. I know the kitties are somewhere because I recently got fucking doused in stinky ass shit smell, fucking brapping out in the nearby sand pit. Just disgusting. Fucking oh my god. It was fucking gross. We brapping here? Someone is. Poor kitties. What do you mean poor kitties? They're taking a shit. What is they probably you know, they're like, ah yeah, that's a shit. Unlike us, they don't have to fucking wipe. They just like step their shit, walk off. Like poor them. What? Poor me. I had to bring up 20 pounds of cat sand to cover it up. Oy oy. Oh man. Has Vosh responded to the man? You guys are like unbelievably mean to me. This is the most high effort beardless Vouch yet. What is this? Why do I look like this? You guys are so fucking mean. Why? Can just one of you be charitable and be like, yeah, he probably doesn't look like a fat like woman underneath his beard? Can one of you? Perhaps? First of all, my face has never been this smooth in my entire life, okay? I had more 5 o'clock shadow than this when I was born. God, that is heinous. You know, normally I would appeal to Vermin here, and I'd be like, Vermin, you've been with me for like 6 years now. Can you confirm that I look fine without a beard? Vermin's never seen me without a beard. So, they can't actually confirm Fem Jong-un. Denil, you proud of that giant shit you took? Yeah. Looks like Austin Powers. I can kind of see that, yeah. Yeah, Vermin's like, I don't know, maybe he does. I don't know. Yeah. George Santos looking motherfucker. That's true. I could be doing drag here. Why are you guys like this? I actually got slightly jump scared when I scrolled and saw this monstrosity. Not even joking. This is like live leak levels of vile. You guys are so fucking mean to me. You're so... Why? Okay. We actually have an action-packed stream. We have 3 appointments today. In 2 minutes, we're going to talk with a pickup artist / MRA. 2 hours from now, we're talking to a historian to talk about the precedent for genocidal rhetoric against LGBT people. And an hour after that, we're talking with a person who emailed me saying that they have issues with my takes on COVID. So I think we're... that's the reason why it's an odd stream time. It's because we could block in, like, a good... You know, we got a chunk of stuff to talk about. So we'll be doing that. Is the OBS going to have a stroke this stream? It didn't act up last stream, so hopefully it doesn't act up this stream. You know, that's the goal. That's the hope. Oh, also, look at this adorable art Robot Bugs did of me. Look at how cute that is. Look at, it's actually really good. Not just me, but also like the background and the color theory. It's perfect. This is the way the light settles. You can actually tell from the way the lights are drawn. You can actually tell from the way the light on the back walls are where my lights are in the studio. That I have a pink one to my left and a blue one to my right. Because like the pink falls here, but the blue falls. It's actually really good. This is what I look like without the beard. Yeah, this is actually what I look like without the beard. That is true. Okay, nice. Everyone, Praga for our beloved comrade, Ryan, who got COVID a couple days ago. Quite bad, but he's getting better now. I just got a text. He's getting better. He's recovering. I don't know, Vosh, your room seems to be tidy for a socialist. If there's one thing Vermin can confirm, it is that I am a tidy person. I actually keep my shit on lock. I haven't always been that way in my life, but I am now. I have settled into being that person. Whenever I see a bit of like crud on the ground, like a piece of drop paper or whatever, I get like the Kill Bill siren playing in my head. You know, I'm actually pretty annoying about it sometimes. Vermin can confirm that too. All right. Okay, we have a call to do. Can I get the AC on? Thank you. Show them the video is sent to you in DMs. Vermin, we have a thing now. Okay, well, I'll check it really quick. Okay, hold on. Stop. This is 2 minutes, okay? Hold on. Is it baby? It's probably baby, yeah. Ooh.
Being a pest. Oh my god, Danielle. What are you doing? Good job being nice, Artemis. He's making little like snort noises.
Why is this audio so bad? Don't worry about it. Probably Discord compression. They're so happy.
Yeah, Danielle?
Why does Danil look so mangy? Because Danil's a Devon Rex. He doesn't have a full haircut.
I have the phone. Oh,
Got him.
So close to my mouth. Sorry if I'm like huffing.
See, you can tell that they're good friends because of these soft baps that Artemis is doing, you know? Artemis really fucking strong. He could bring the hammer down on Danil if he wanted to. But he's just doing these little baby baps.
What are you thinking about it?
There was an intro period, Sarcastic Banana. It took a couple weeks.
Artemis, you're being so good. Good job. Good job. Danielle. Oh, you're rowdy. See those teeth. Oh my.
Look, it's kitten teeth. See, look.
Look at.
He hasn't lost his baby teeth yet, so he has 2 sets of canines. See? Look, see, he's got 2 teeth here, 2 teeth here, 2 teeth here, and 2 teeth here. He has doubles for all of his big teeth.
What a demon. Holy shit. All his teeth are doubled right now.
So cute. Okay, we're being rude to the person we're talking to. Let's get in that call. Very good video. Top tier video, even. Entering the studio. Okay, so we want to set our camera to the OBS virtual cam. Nice. Okay.
Hello.
What's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing excellently. How are you doing this fine day? Where in the world are you? Vaguely.
Uh, I'm in Vancouver.
Oh, nice. How's Vancouver doing?
It's good. It's quite sunny today. Sometimes it can I don't know why it's been really weird, but lately it's been snowing, even though it's not usually supposed to snow at this time. I don't know where you're at, but how's the weather?
I'm over in Seattle, and I think I haven't left the house today. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I'm guessing the weather should be the same. We're like an hour from each other.
Y-
But yeah, thank you very
Oh
much
shit,
for.
that's right. You're only like a little bit north of me. That's right. I completely forgot. Our weather should be the same.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having this conversation. I've had even though I'm a progressive person, but I've been having a hard time finding progressive people to talk to. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you.
Oh yeah, the pleasure's mine. I have a terrible memory. You're gonna have to remind me, what exactly are we talking about today? Also, introduce yourself. Everyone says hi.
So yeah, hello everybody. My name is Vikram. My YouTube channel is Vikslife, Vikslife. I do more reaction content around dating, and I basically take a look at what content creators online say when it comes to dating. I see where I agree with them on or not. When I was younger, I used to be really into pickup artist stuff. As I grow up, I've kind of, because I used to be more conservative growing up, but my views have kind of shifted a bit. But I still see myself within that space. But uh, I guess I'm more left wing compared to the rest of the whole space. But yeah,
Yeah,
still I
the
try to.
space I think is generally pretty right leaning, as I've heard in the past. I've heard rumors of this. Um, no, I'm happy to hear it. And what did you have in your mind? What do you want to talk about this fine day?
Yeah, so I was going through some of your videos, and I just had a few questions to ask you as it relates to some stuff you said about like pickup artists. Um, so you had a video where you went through this. There's this like I think it's like a dating coach or something. He had like a seminar when I think Andrew Callahan, the Channel 5 dude, went over there to like interview them or something. I
Yes,
don't know
I
if you.
remember that.
Yeah. One issue that I have with, I guess one disagreement that I have with what you said was that you basically said that pickup artists promote toxic and manipulative behaviors. You say that they teach men to manipulate and objectify women using tactics that are often disrespectful, coercive, and even abusive. Um, I want to know what tactics were you referring to?
Um, yeah, my experience with the pickup artist community has been like overwhelmingly negative. I don't know if I've ever interacted with anybody from the community who wasn't at least kind of like openly chauvinistic. Most of the pickup artist tips that I hear about and the kinds of people who are lionized in those spaces seem to be like all about treating dating like highly gamified. They insist on innate differences between men and women, and the best way to get ahead in an unfair dating space for men is to kind of like exploit psychological vulnerabilities in women. Um, I know it's not entirely that, but it often feels like it's mostly that. That's definitely the experience I've had.
Yeah. Don't you think that's more of the red pill stuff though?
Well, there is a pretty big overlap between the red
Yeah.
pill ideology and pickup artistry. I know there are subsets of the pickup artist community that are kind of like a little more pragmatic and a bit outside of that, but you gotta admit, like you said it yourself, you're more left leaning than the majority of the space. The majority of the space is definitely like pretty well captured by like the Andrew Tate kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Tate, by what I know, he started as a pickup artist, but he's kind of anti that stuff now because he's found his own like red pill niche. But yeah, I see your point, but I feel like again, I'll just bring it to my personal experience. When I think back to 16-year-old me who like was like who had like a lot of like social anxiety issues, he didn't know like how to talk to women or even to people in general, who like sometimes even being in social situations would give me like panic attacks, and I just didn't know what I was doing. Finding a space online that taught me how to open a girl who I see in public, what to say to start the interaction, how to be shut, how to check for interest, how to check for comfort, how to build more comfort, how to eventually bring a girl back to your place. Stuff like that, I feel like was quite helpful to teach me the basic social interactions, like the skills. And I don't see what's wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with those things in principle. I just think that in practice, like you have to think about the kind of demographic we're talking about here. A lot of young guys who are insecure around women, you know, like this is like a major thing in their heads, right? This is like it weighs heavily on their minds and their personalities. And usually they're looking for an out to those feelings. But people who are having negative feelings usually want someone to blame, right? Like we see this all the time when it comes to any kind of fear, insecurity, disgust, any inconsistency in a person's like mental well-being. You want like something to put that on. And there's like this whole like cottage industry of people online who are ready and willing to make this all about like feminism. Well, why is it so difficult to talk to women? Well, actually, it's because of hypergamy. Feminism has overvalued women's sexual marketplace worth. And as a product of that, like men are at a disadvantage, which causes like the average man is like not capable of like meeting a woman of the average, you know, like relatively average attractiveness. And it's this like this whole social analysis that ultimately comes down to anti-feminism and misogyny. And I think that there's nothing wrong with teaching social skills, but oftentimes, like, it does get accompanied with a lot of really bad political stuff.
Yeah, the one point I do agree with was that when I realized that a lot of people in that space were anti-feminism, I thought it was kind of weird. But I guess some would say that they are against the more like radical feminist movements, right? The more like this part within feminism that's more anti-men. But I don't know if they disapprove of more intersectional types. You know, that they might not understand what intersectionality is, but the applications of it, I don't think they'd be against that.
Well, I've had those conversations before where I'm like, "Hey, did you know that actually feminism like also concerns men's issues? And did you know that like you can address these issues with this framework?" But I've never really had much success with that because it feels like oftentimes the anti-feminism is kind of the point, right? Like, I don't know, like if you can imagine like your average Andrew Tate fan who's screeching about how men need to keep women in their place or whatever. I don't think you could go up to them and go like, "Hey, did you know that like all these issues would be addressed by feminism?" And they'd be like, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize that." You know, I think they're a bit further down the hate path. Like there's another justification for why they are acting the way they are.
The thing is, like, when we think of Andrew Tate, his whole popularity came from the fact that, so it's like he had the way his, I guess, his marketing model worked was that he created outrage by saying misogynistic stuff and pushing that, like, because it's like, you know, if you say something outrageous, people are going to share you around to insult you, and the more people share you around, the more people see your stuff, and but then when he pulled in people through self-development advice, talking about the importance of working out, working on your finances, improving your looks, money, status to get girls, and all that stuff is more like self-development like stuff, which I think was quite good. But the problem with him was more like it's like the misogynistic stuff that he pushed on the side. And I used to
Well,
defend.
the misogynistic stuff isn't on the side. The misogynistic stuff is the main point. Like I've seen a lot of Tate. The misogyny isn't like a little side thing that gets in the way of his like broader advocacy for self-improvement. The self-improvement is like a minor dust coating that gets applied to a gigantic brick of misogyny. Like that's the main thing that he talks about, you know?
Yeah, in the maybe up until 2 weeks ago, I would have disagreed with you, but I've just had like a I don't know. The more I see of him, the less I like him. The more I develop like a hatred of him, even. But hmm. No, when it relates to dating advice, like if a guy does not go for pickup party sources, how else would he learn how to open and how to start an interaction with a girl, how to be flirty, how to maintain like a good eye contact, body language, vocal variety? How else would they learn that if not from pickup party sources?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by pickup artist, because even I've given advice to my audience on how to flirt with people. But most of my advice is predicated on the idea that fundamentally talking to like a woman to pick them up or like flirt with them isn't really different from just talking to guys to have a casual conversation. That fundamentally everything is just about the basic principles of conversation, understanding what topics people are interested in, how to hold their attention. But there's nothing really special about flirting or sexuality or dating. It's really just kind of more friendship. It's just more of like the basic social expectations that are formed elsewhere. And I don't like the idea that there's this like categorical distinction. Of course, flirting, like how to flirt specifically, that's like obviously like you don't go down to, you know, the barber shop and like flirt with your barber like a 55-year-old guy while he's cutting your hair. Of course, there's like kind of a categorical distinction there. But I think most of it is just like friendship skills, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree because think of this, like how many guys have a lot of women friends that they are just friend zone with. These guys probably are really good at making friends, but just because you have the right social skills to make friends, that doesn't mean it's going to carry over to dating, right?
Yeah, but the goal of getting good at communication is like expressing what you want, right? So if you have a bunch of women who are your friends, but you want to be more than friends with them, you're kind of failing to indicate that to them. I think like the idea with a friendship or with a relationship you're trying to build or anything like that, I think like you have to learn to be forthcoming and not just kind of take the safe route of passively agreeing to whatever you think they're into at the moment. But that's like universal, right? It's not just when you're trying to date somebody. Also, a lot of these guys, like, are they really friends with the chicks? I don't know. I think a lot of women like they're really willing to jump into being friends with a guy because like women have no male friends sometimes. because like a ton of guys are just trying to get in their pants. So when a woman thinks they might have an actual guy friend, they're like, oh my god, finally, I can just fucking be normal with a guy, you know? And then it turns out that guy also just wanted to get in their pants. He just took longer to get to that. And I think that, you know, it's kind of a fucked situation on both ends.
Yeah, but though I feel like the pickup artist has an answer to that, right? Like they'd say, there's people you'll be friends with, you engage with them normally in your day to day, whether you meet them in class and like events, clubs you're in, or like work or whatever. But on the other side, you when you go to approach a girl, you indicate you show like interest right away. You're clear, with like maybe you'll open her by letting her know you think she's cute. Maybe you'll give her a compliment that kind of indicates that you're interested in her, and then you gauge if she's interested in you back, and then you start the interaction that way. This way, there's no like it's not like I became friends with you to try to get in your pants later on. Well, the approach that you give, I feel like unless the girl makes the move first, you might just like end up being friends with everyone.
Well, I don't. I think the friend zone thing is always like a communication failure. If you're just friends
Yeah.
with a girl, but you want to be more than friends, like you can always just say that to her. You know, whether it works out well or not. Obviously, you want to be straightforward with what you want. I guess I just maybe this is like the categorical distinction thing that really bugs me with a lot of pickup artistry. It's that if you know you say like indicate interest to a girl by going up to her and complimenting her, like at a bar or something, you know, and if I'm at a social event and I want to just talk to a group of people, I'll also go up and compliment them. Like if there's a guy, like any guy, you know, like I'm at my university graduation like ceremony, or I'm at the dinner afterwards, and there's like a faculty guy who's like twice my age, and go up and say like, you know, hey, nice tie, you're looking good, you know, whatever. It doesn't feel that different to me. It just feels like people build up these expectations because they think like, okay, well, women are different, you have to treat them different, and I think that's what makes a lot of guys really anxious when they talk to women, you know?
Sorry, I was thinking for a sec.
No, no, no.
Yeah, I do agree with the part about like I disagree with a lot of people who are more into that space when it comes to how they treat women. Like I just see there are differences between men and women, but I think the differences are probably more social than biological. There are biological differences too, but it's not as significant as they'll make it out to be. But um I don't know, because it's. I think you and I might just have like a different. Because especially for you, as you're like a semi-celebrity, so it might just be a bit different. Because even for you, I've seen a video where you talked about how you're direct right away with the girls, right? Or guy girls again, right?
Yeah, if I think somebody is cute, I try to tell them that pretty upfront. I'm not normal. I don't normally like bury the lead, you know?
Yeah. But doesn't that just maybe I misunderstood? But doesn't that kind of go against what you said just earlier?
Well, it's just about like what my intentions are with the person. If I want to flirt with somebody, and I'm into guys too, so it's pretty like
Mhm.
ubiquitous with everyone that I talk to. But if I'm interested in somebody, like I'll go up and I'll say that. And if I'm not romantically or sexually interested in somebody, I'll usually just go up and say whatever else I'm thinking. But I'm always just saying what I'm thinking. I don't really think of it differently. I don't think like, okay, those seem like cool people that I want to talk to, but those seem like cool people I want to flirt with. So that's like a different thing. It's just in both cases, going up and just saying what's on your mind. And keep in mind, like I know there are like pickup artist guys who talk about that. And that's good. Like I agree with that. You know, I'm not opposed to any of that. I just I wonder how much anxiety guys experience is like a product of this built up feeling that women are this like distinct creature that has to be treated in a different way. There are guys who are fine talking to other guys. The moment they talk to a girl, they get all nervous and self conscious, and I don't know why. Like I genuinely don't get why. I can kind of sympathize with their perspective, but I've never felt that way.
Hmm. I think it comes from it's another argument I was going to bring up later, but I can just bring it up now. So it relates to what you're saying here. But when you brought up that pickup artists teach that your words, not mine, bitches ain't shit, and they try to drill it to you, and your word, not mine, you know. But no, I do think there's like a good message behind this because when if I'm talking to a guy who never gets laid, This
Mhm.
guy doesn't know how to talk to girls. This guy's like a like generally like struggle in social situation. It's normal that that guy will put women on like a pedestal, you know, like will put women in like this weird creature that he doesn't know how to access just because he doesn't have the experience. He hasn't talked to enough women to know. But I would say then the solution would be maybe to get that guy like a good online dating profile, teach that guy how to talk to girls, get him the social experience to know, to start like to have enough like real life experience to be able to see women as equal to him, like on the same like human level, you know?
Yeah, I think my advice is usually like the best way to do this is to have a female friend, and not like a female friend you secretly want to date or fuck, and you're just like being friends with them to get on their good side before proposing the question, but like an actual female friend, because there's like in the dating ritual, you know, in the interactions that men and women have, like say you're picking up women at a bar, right? There is like a ton of weird, arbitrary social bullshit that gets in between people and being forthcoming in that environment. There's like the expectation the guy has to be suave and he has to be the one who approaches, and the woman has to be coquettish and like not super direct because she doesn't want to come across too easy, and also the woman might fear violence from the man, and the man doesn't, and like the man doesn't want to be creepy, and there's so much there, right? And I feel like it builds up the idea that like there's this impassable gap in between men and women. But if you're like friends with a woman for long enough, they just act like a regular person, you know? Like if you can see this especially online because you can talk to people without hearing their voice or looking them in the eye. And if you're friends with a woman online and you just like the username is whatever, it's just like talking to anyone else. There's not actually a difference between having a friend that's male or female. They're the same. So I think if more people realize that and kind of really I don't know, internalize the fact that there isn't actually that line. It'd be a lot easier for them to work around it, you know? Because dating profiles, especially man, like a Tinder or whatever, Tinder fucking sucks. Especially if you already have like weird attitudes towards women, because you're gonna get like one match for every 1,000 swipes right you do, in most places, unless you're gorgeous. So it probably makes people feel a lot worse, you know?
Yeah, just give me a second to think. Hmm. With when yeah, when it comes to online dating profiles, at least for me, like I had like a really bad online dating profile, so I wasn't getting results at all. And you know who Alex of Playing with Fire is?
Yes, I've talked to him.
Yeah, Alex fixed my online dating profile. Now, like that's basically how I get girls nowadays. Just like, but regarding the friends, regarding yeah, the argument about if men had more women friends, they wouldn't be that weird. I don't know if that's true because think of like there's a trope of a male feminist who's super creepy. This is not representative of all feminist women, of course, but like the very much that stereotype.
Yeah.
Those are guys who probably hang out with women a lot, right? Those are guys who know about women's issues, who are all aware, yet they are really creepy.
Um, yeah, that definitely happens a lot for sure. I mean like
Does it?
well like the yeah, I think we have a lot of unfair standards about what we call guys creepy for, right? You know the jokes about like, you know, how to not be called creepy, be handsome, don't be ugly, that kind of thing. Like that's kind of true. If you're hot, you can get away with a lot more. Um, Obviously, online profiles exacerbate that because you don't actually get to, I don't know, experience a person's humanity when you're talking to them. They're just like some text and a screen and some photos. So it's really easy to go like, ah, of course. Well, he typed that while he was in his, you know, his mother's basement, and he was coated in dried semen from the last 8 masturbation sessions he had before he showered. It's like, and like all this is bullshit you make up, but people do that. Like everyone does that. People just make shit up in their head. Um, it's really unfortunate. I think that Tinder exacerbates a lot of these problems, like dating apps in general. It's a lot easier if you're gay or even like gay coded. Like if you're in the queer community or even like an ally of it, I think things are a lot easier because queer people tend to be a lot sluttier and a lot less um concerned with social etiquette. But I can imagine that if you're just like a straight guy, that shit has to be hellish.
Yeah, for some reason, it reminded me of like this TikTok I saw where like it's like this girl was like showing my boobs to my gay best friend, and the guy like she gets behind the camera, shows her boobs to the guy, then the guy looks at the camera, smiles, and then the music kind of changes. Like then the punchline is like, oh, he's straight, he pretended to be gay to see the
Well,
the
the double
her
punchline is she probably knows. Um, It's yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's also like some weird like homophobia that some women treat gay guys with, the idea that they're basically women. I don't know. It's just this frankly, the whole system kind of fucking sucks, you know? I think the most that you can do in an environment like this is just try to go out and try to make friends. Um okay, wait, I'll say it like this, okay? Have you ever tried getting a job online, like filling out those stupid resumes and like the forms and like what would how slavishly would you lick the boots of your manager at this location, like that bullshit?
Oh yeah, like I was like, why do you want to work at this company? Oh my God, I'm in love with the values and all that
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's miserable and it's degrading, it's dehumanizing, and it rarely works, right? Because like every position gets 5,000 applications sent, so you rarely ever hear back from them. Whereas it used to be the main way people got jobs was through references. Like if you had a family friend and they would just like, "Oh yeah, my company has an open position. I heard your son Jimmy just got out of college. Does he want a position?" And then like that was how most people got their jobs. I also think that's how most people used to get their relationships. They would just meet people through shared friend groups. They would go to social events and just bump into people and talk and, kind of naturally commingle. And much like how a lot of people are doing this online job application bullshit, we're doing a lot of online relationship application bullshit too. And I think it's also kind of really fucking bad. So I think the best thing you can do is try to rebuild those social networks. Like go out there, make friends, talk to people, and hey, maybe it'll work out.
Yeah. I have to like I don't know if I agree, but it's I have to think more about like about this. You brought up some takes that I haven't really like thought deeply about, but so I'll put that aside for now. Um, Another disagreement that I had with you is that I get the impression that you're more on the black pill side. Like black pillars will say that looks matter way more than game. I get the impression that you tend to agree with that.
No, I think gay matters a lot. Um, I mean, obviously looks do matter a lot, but I don't think it's impossible for anyone. I mean, maybe there's some like, I don't know, 4 foot tall like burn victim or whatever. But I know plenty of people who aren't really that conventionally attractive, who are super charismatic, and they just don't have any issues um getting laid, you know? I think it's a lot easier. Or like confidence is way more of a factor than people want to believe that it is. Because if it is confidence, you're kind of responsible for not succeeding to an extent, right? If you believe it's just your looks and it's like, well, your sexual marketplace value is coded into your skeleton, it was decided at birth. Well, then you have like no reason to try because it's all like moot. It was set in stone from the beginning. But if it's charisma, you could always improve. So I think people don't like the idea that there's something they could be doing. That's like an incel thing, right? Like they hate the idea that they could take a shower and get better because they're like, wow, take a shower, great advice. And then it's like, okay, well, a lot of them really haven't taken a shower though, so it actually is good advice for some of them.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. There's another part about so in that video where you were reviewing that pickup boot camp or whatever. Um, I agreed with a lot of the stuff you brought up about like the coach. I thought the coach was kind of like a really cringy dude. Um, and I talked to Alex about him, and what Alex told me was that he's a nice guy in private, but he's really cringe. Like even like in private, he's like a really cringe dude. But my only, I guess, a concern I had was that not concern, like a disagreement. Um, I felt like you were unnecessarily mean to the guys he was teaching, because like some of them were like awkwardly trying to talk to girls, and Andrew Callahan like was filming them, and but these were guys who have like really bad social skills who are trying to get better, and it's normal at first when you're trying to talk to people, you're gonna be awkward. You're gonna say things that are gonna come off the wrong way because you don't know what you're doing, and because I remember at first when I tried to like get out of my shell and start talking to more people, I was really awkward too, and it's a normal thing. But I felt like you would make unnecessarily mean comments at them, and I kind of wanted to know why you said those things.
um it's been a while since I watched that video with the Andrew Callahan because he's canceled too. If I remember correctly, I think it's kind of like a sympathetic cringe thing. I have a really low opinion of this like pickup artist boot camp shit. So when I see people go for that, like I do kind of feel bad for them because I feel like they're being preyed on a little bit. But at the same time, you have to be kind of down a path to fall into that stuff to begin with. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to like listening to actual gurus. I don't really have an issue of like, hey, here's watching an online video that can teach you like some basic tips for reading people's social cues. That's okay. But if you're like meeting up with this guy, this was the guy with like the purple mohawk, right? That's the guy we're talking about.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. If you're to a point where you're meeting somebody like this at a convention in person, I feel like you're down a road, you know? Like you have packed up for the long haul. You have loaded the station wagon and you are way down the road. And you know, to a point like I can't reserve all of my disdain for the behavior. But obviously I always celebrate people's efforts to improve, you know?
Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, that guy, like, I agree. I'm not gonna defend him. I thought it was really cringe. Um, And I do think though a lot of what he does, even though I'm sure he's sincere, a lot of it is also like a marketing move. Because like if you should look at me being weird, I'm dressed weirdly, my hairstyle is so weird. Yet just using my amazing game, I'm able to get laid a lot. Like he's gonna get clients that way because then these guys who are not as weird as him are gonna think that oh, if this dude is really weird, he's able to get girls, maybe I could too. But in the end, like the behavior that you're showing when it comes to these guys is just guys trying to work on their social skills. This, like, even as cringe as it can be, all of us, I'm sure that even you must have, like, when you first started going out to be social, not even dating, just like being social, like a social person, you made mistakes, right? Like I've made mistakes, like everyone has. And just because I get the impression that most people they go through these social missteps when they are kids, so as adults we've learned it already. And I think society tends to be unfair towards men who haven't figured out the social skills by the time they become adults.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that, especially since men are the ones who are expected to kind of like initiate. Um, but at the same time, you know, there has to be a limit on like permissibility with the kinds of pickup artist advice that people fall for, right? Like Andrew Tate fans right now are like fourth Reiching their way across social media. So, like I wouldn't extend my charitability to them very much outside of a general like, well, I hope you change kind of thing. Um, as for that particular guy, you know, he's doing like the old peacocking thing. I don't remember the exact thing that his proteges or students or whatever were doing in that video that I mocked, but I imagine there was probably something that I would find like pretty disagreeable at the face of things. I celebrate people's efforts to improve, but we have to be selective about those efforts, right? Because if we just accept like any effort to make guys more charismatic, then you fall for the Tate thing where it's like, you know, like he might be like a sex trafficking rapist who's currently like heading the forefront of the reactionary movement. But, you know, he did tell people to work out, so it all evens out in the end.
Yeah, that was my because initially when I would think of Andrew Tate, I thought of him as like a guy who's like a misogynist, but at least he's teaching guys to work out and take care of themselves and stuff. But then like the more I looked into him, the more I feel less I liked him. It's like
Well, that's the
having
thing.
genuine problems.
Alex from Playing with Fire also defended him, like pretty extensively too on some of his worst comments. And Alex from Playing with Fire was nice to me, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. But Andrew Tate is like the devil. So I worry about the level of charitability that we're offering, like adjacency wise, to pickup artists and their ilk, because we're sympathetic to men who have issues getting a date. Like I am sympathetic to those men, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be sort of like blanket permissive to everyone who claims they have a solution, because it's a really exploitable market. Insecure guys are basically the bedrock of reactionary movements because, you know, it's almost every reactionary movement at its core has had like a group of men who are fearful that their sexuality or their you know, their virility is being challenged by some social or demographic change. Um, which is weird, but it's also the world we live in. And we have to be careful about that stuff. And I try to strike that balance of like sympathy for the problems, but at the same time, like we can't be permissive of every like leech that hops onto that problem, makes a bunch of money off it, selling people bad solutions.
Hmm. I mean, just as I mentioned earlier, just like a separation between. So Andrew Tate is actually he's against the pickup artist stuff. He's like very much like on the red pill side. So he'll say like, "Oh, cold approaching women in public." It's like stuff that like low value men would do. Me as a high value man, like I'm so rich, I'm so such high status, I have such amazing looks. that women will reach out to me and do everything, like, and he'll brag about how he gets to bang models while pickup artists will bang like your average regular girl. So there's a bit of a difference on that side. But yeah, I don't think I agree with Alex on Tate. I think Alex, his defense of Tate would be that this, even though like he'll call out the sex trafficking and all that wild stuff that Tate does, but he'll bring up that whether you like it or not, he's probably the most popular self-help for men like guy out there. No one else is anywhere near on his level, and we have to take, I guess, the best. It's like even though he's a horrible person, he's what men around the world are looking up to. He's what men around the world seem to need.
Which is pretty, well, that's pretty sad, right? I don't even think he talks about self-help. All of his self-help just seems to be like, all of you are losers. If you weren't losers, you would be a multimillionaire like me, and you could just buy everything you want. He doesn't even really advocate for self-help. He basically just, like, all of his self-help is just him saying, he's great, be like me. Which isn't really self-help. It's basically just him, like, jerking off onto a crowd of like, adoring teenagers, and them thanking him for it. Which is pretty weird. But ultimately it's the same like political impulse as any kind of pickup artistry stuff, right? Like it appeals to the same demographic. You have like insecure, sexually unsuccessful guys who are looking for a solution, and you have like the incel black pill route where it's like, okay, well you can't do anything, you might as well just kill yourself, and you have like the pickup artist route where it's like, okay, we'll get really good at talking to bitches, and then you have like the red pill. Men and women are inherently different. You have to play women. You have to play the game to get them. And I don't think any of these are like mutually exclusive. There are tons of black-pilled people who like Andrew Tate. There are people who do pickup artistry who like Tate. Tate says red pill stuff, but a lot of his stuff is also pretty black pill, where it's like, yeah, like if you don't look like me, if you're not rich like me, it's over, which is pretty black pill because not many people can be multimillionaires who own 36 cars. So I think it all just blurs together. It's just like male insecurity and whoever can make the most money selling fake solutions to them. And I, again, like I would be more sympathetic to pickup artistry if I'd seen more people who were openly critical of people like Tate, who are, even if you are a pickup artist, like I think the perspective with him would be, oh yeah, Tate is like a monster who pulls people away from good behavior because he gets rich off of selling people bad solutions. But I don't see that criticism because I think a lot of pickup artists know that they share an audience with Tate. So they can't, like if they criticize Tate, a bunch of people in their audience be like, whoa, brother, I didn't realize that you were, part of the Matrix. And it's like, it's all part of the same group.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd say that Alex is probably the closest that I've seen to doing it. Like, he sided with Hassan Piker in that debate. By what I know, he tries to like, he'll take some of the concerns that Tate brings up and pull it back to his pickup artist stuff. But I don't know, because I remember when I was a teenager, there was this guy called Elliot Hells. He was like a strength. I don't know if you know who he is, but he used to teach guys like how to do like strength training stuff and all that. And then started doing life advice, and he just kind of went crazy. He started believing in God, and he started like pushing like full on like misogyny. Like out of nowhere, he started bringing up that like he doesn't know if women should have the right to vote and some crazy shit. And I don't know why, but for some reason, this is what men all over the world tend to gravitate to.
Well, I think that's because this is like the desperation behavior, right? A lot of men who are sexually unsuccessful. Okay, I guess politics is usually about targeting people where they have very strong feelings and exacerbating those feelings to the point that they'll go along with positions they don't normally agree with. So like the conservative like agenda right now, it's like, okay, if we can get people this angry about trans people, like we can get them to go along with a bunch of economic policies that are objectively bad for them. And with the like pickup artistry stuff, with the Andrew Tate stuff, I think it's like, especially when you're young, being insecure about women is like the #1 thing on guys' minds. It's like it dominates their brains. Morning, noon, and night. If a guy feels like he's not getting laid or he'll never get laid, he feels like despair about his relationship prospects. That shit like lives rent free in his brain all the time, which means it's a really easy vector to target. And you get like the guys who go after that, the guys who can make money off of that. And that's everyone, by the way, including me, who talks about these issues. Like anyone who talks about it, we're making money off of it if we have any kind of like business set up around it. But there's a huge overlap with being insecure for these reasons and fearing women And people tend to hate things that they fear because they're the root of a negative emotion. And I think it's just really easy to slide into that, you know? If you already have a political model that is based entirely around like angry, insecure dudes who are, trying to better themselves and they're looking for someone to blame, it's really easy to direct that and kind of like weaponize that and radicalize people in that way. I'm looking at his YouTube channel, by the way, Elliot Hulse. Elliot Hulse's Strength Camp. I haven't heard of this guy before, but he looks like the type. He's doing like the mean mugging, angry face in all of his videos. 2 million subs. Oh my god. Whew. I should get into this.
Yeah. He used to be like a world champion, like powerlifting dude, if I remember well. But then like he has a second channel where he talks about life advice, and now he's like a Jesse Lee Peterson fan, and like he started, he went like I don't know, he just showed that side of him, and yeah, he just kind of went wild. But um, okay, about masculinity, there's something I kind of wanted to get more of your take on. So, in a video, you talked about how traditional masculinity can be harmful to men and women. You also criticized the idea of traditional masculinity, which you said can be harmful, and all that. Traditional gender roles often encourage men to be emotionally repressed, aggressive, and dominant, which can lead to unhealthy behaviors and attitudes towards women. Do you recognize that there are masculine values that are really good?
Yeah, there are masculine and feminine virtues that are both good, but like a lot of masculine virtues are so-called virtues are really destructive. Um, like they're literally like killing guys, you know. So I push back against those. But if it's stuff like strength or like responsibility or honor, like I get it. Those are good, right?
Yeah, I guess we mostly agree. I feel like I don't know if it's hard for me to say like if most masculine values are bad or good or whatever. I feel like, for example, being a leader, whether you're a man or woman, just having that skill of being able to be an independent person who's able to handle difficult situations, being someone who's like yeah, having strength, being able to like carry yourself properly and all that. Those are really good values, and vice versa. Like having on the feminine side, being a caring person, like having more, I guess, of an emotional control. Even though I know some people would say that emotional control is not feminine, whatever. I don't know, whatever people determine as well. But um, an issue that I see with progressives sometimes is that when they talk about healthier masculinities, they are talking about feminine values. They don't really like address what masculine values there are that's good.
Yeah, well, there are some that I think are good, and I think a lot of them stand for themselves. I don't consider myself a particularly feminine person, you know. I'm sure if you got like your average PUA or like red pill guy, you'd be like, well, you're gay, so you know. But I think broadly, I'm pretty comfortable with a lot of masculine tendencies. The issue is like there are a couple that really fuck over men. The big ones being emotional unavailability and the idea that being angry is is like a virtuous thing. Like there's something cool or masculine or defining or validating about being angry. Those two things in particular, like kill men. And I mean kill literally, because the emotional unavailability thing is probably the main reason men have higher suicide rates than women, you know? Because like women have a much easier time making friends with each other. It's really easy to open up to women. Like even as a guy. It's like everyone like wants like a woman to talk to when it comes to like, oh yeah, I want like some emotional comfort. Like overwhelmingly people choose women. And it's not because they're intrinsically more more like warm or whatever. It's because like they're socialized to be more accepting of emotional expression. Guys aren't.
Yeah, and I know this is something that I've heard it's quite common in with people who have autism, for example. Like women with autism have an easier time because it's not easier. It's not easy, but it's like relatively as it relates to social issues. It's like it might be a bit easier just to the degree that society tends to train women more to fit in socially, while for men it's a lot harder because like society doesn't give you that same degree of training. Um, and this is another issue that I had with you when you made fun of that guy, that cringy PUA dude who had like a piece of paper where he had like specific steps, like you engage with a like compliment and continue with this. Like because initially when I see the scripts that some pickup artist coaches have, I used to kind of cringe a lot at it, and I still kind of do. But I talked to a guy who has autism, and he told me that for him, seeing someone explain it in like step by step was very helpful in understanding, okay, I start an interaction, I say this. If she says this means this and that. And like to people with different degrees of autism, that could be really helpful to have like a script to follow, at least at the beginning until you get it. And I want to know, do you not agree with that?
I don't know. I feel like the scripting stuff makes it more understandable for some people, but I wonder if it's actually good in the long run. I feel like that really scripted attitude towards social engagement encourages people to think of it as a set of challenges to overcome. And I don't know if that's usually the best way to engage with other people. It's like I think maybe it's like a good starting point or a good template or maybe something to kind of keep in mind. But in the long run, I wonder if there's sort of like a negative consequence to reducing social interactions to that kind of formula. I don't like stuff like that. Don't you feel like I mean, don't you feel like it kind of encourages people to think of those engagements in an incorrect way, where you're not just sort of reading how they feel, saying what you feel. Instead, you're going like, okay, step one, got to do this. Step two, all right, I'm looking for this behavior. If I see this, I do this. If I don't, I'm not saying everyone can do that like easily and intuitively, but maybe a reliance on that method might be kind of negative in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, for me, because I'm not autistic, I just, I guess I just struggle with anxiety. I guess everyone has their own vices or whatever, if we consider a vice. But, uh, so for me, like, it's not that important, but if I put myself in I have to know, because the only experience I had with like an autistic guy who talked to me about it, he told me that he needs that to help him. So I'm just basing myself on that. Actually, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's yeah, I guess it's possible that for some people it could be beneficial. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Again, it's been a while since I've seen the video too, so it's possible that the specific steps that were being, you know, that were being listed there were were less than savory. I don't have anything against like the market of male self improvement. I guess it's just that gets taken into a negative direction so often. You know?
Yeah. We talked about Andrew Tate. We talked about Elliot Hills. There's another guy I want to talk to you about just to get your take on it. It's Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Uh, so personally, I'm not a fan. I think my if I were to talk to him, I would probably tell him like before he gives advice to people to clean his room first. But uh, my problem with him was that uh, outside I guess I understand that people say that he gives good psychology advice, but I guess my religious and political disagreements with him tend to make me see him in a more negative way. But I just wanted to know what you think of him.
I have a pretty negative. So right now, like he's basically been lobotomized. Right now, he's insane. On Twitter, he tweets like not kidding, like 100, 200 times a day in rambling, incoherent, anti-progressive screeds. So like, I'm gonna try to like amalgamate Jordan Peterson as a person and not think of him right now because he used to not just do that, which is all he does now. And I don't think his psychology advice is like that helpful. There's some stuff on discipline and self-reliance that I think are good, but I think overall, a lot of his perspective, or a lot of the stuff that he said about men and how to improve your life and so on and so forth, is at best it's been banal and inoffensive. You know, it's not. It's pretty hard to argue with. Like the clean your room stuff. You know, people make fun of it, but like, okay, clean your room. Like, right, your parents told you that. You know, that's not groundbreaking. It's not wrong to say. I agree with it, but it's not groundbreaking. It's banal. It's inoffensive. And then it's kind of paired in with this really weird like religious morality that ties everything together. Um and I think that the broader goal of this is to encourage self-reliance and independence in a way that is actually often quite damaging to your mental health. A good example of this would be he used to say, well, I think he still would say, do not attempt to change the world until your house is in perfect order. Like basically, don't try fussing about with how things work until you know for a fact your life is together. Because otherwise, how can you even, reasonably say that? Which is hypocritical, A, because he was addicted to benzos at the time, and B, oftentimes people's houses aren't in order because of systemic issues they can only address broadly. But an emphasis on self-reliance, while good, is also one of the main issues that men have, right? Like self-reliance is a good virtue, but we are literally a social species, like everything that we've built as a society has been a product of our ability to cooperate. The idea that self-reliance is some kind of like ultimate virtue of masculinity is a destructive one for men because it kind of pulls them in the wrong direction. And yeah, I try to push back against that. I think people should live communally and less independently. At least independence in the way it's framed by like people like Jordan Peterson, which I think in reality isn't independence. It's actually a kind of like, hey, keep it together and bottle up your feelings. Don't make your issues other people's issues.
Yeah, about the communal thing, I agree. Like, just when I was a kid, like if my parents were working, I would go to the neighbors, and the neighbors would like, I would like, they would take care of me and stuff, and it was like a more like, there were more community, but nowadays it's not really as big a thing, or maybe it is in some places. But regarding Jordan Peterson's psychology, again, I'm not a psychologist. It's hard for me to know if it's good or not. Uh, I felt like I didn't like the 12 rules for life thing. It didn't feel like, I think two of the rules were like parental rules, and the rest it felt like Jordan Peterson's life was such a mess. I don't know if I could trust his advice on how to fix my own life. But my biggest problem with him was how like he has made it in such a way that people, at least in his space, make it seem like being religious is edgy.
Yeah, like being religious is counterculture. That's actually a big thing happening right now with like Catholic converts especially, where it's like, the mainstream is degenerate, it's liberal, it's atheistic or agnostic, and you can actually be part of the counterculture by pretending to be Catholic. And it's such bullshit. Like it is never possible. It's impossible for religious indoctrination to be countercultural because you're submitting yourself to like the most absolute possible authority. You can never be like a dissident when you're basically saying like, all right, I know the best way to be an edgy independent. I will submit myself to God. Like it's nonsensical. But people get behind that for the same reason they get behind Andrew Tate, right? Like it's usually desperate, lonely men who are looking for some kind of mission. The same shit happens with ISIS. Like people don't get recruited to ISIS after like working 20 years a stable office job in Syria. It's like young people who have been radicalized because they feel like everything they ever had was taken away from them by the West, by Christianity, by imperialism. And likewise, you have all these like, with respect, kind of like loser 18-year-old guys who've never so much as seen a tit in real life. And they're like, yeah, well, society is broken. I will crush liberal degeneracy with the weight of my Orthodox Christianity. I'm signing up. Let's do it. And of course, they're bad Christians when they do this. Like, they don't go to church, but it doesn't matter, right? It's about like the narrative.
Yeah, but I'll play devil's advocate, I guess Jordan's advocate.
Mhm.
With Sam Harris back then, the reason he lost a lot of fans to Jordan Peterson was that Sam was not able to provide meaning to life in a way that Jordan Peterson was. And as it relates to men, and Jordan Peterson was uniquely placed in such a way as to he was able to identify real struggles that men face, especially like I guess his audience is more white men. So white men who felt like society was being unfair to them, like who were maybe they had their own issues, but then they go to university and they would hear that, oh, you're like among the most privileged guy, like you cis straight white men, or like blah 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 and all that. And Jordan Peterson, he responded to that and told them, no, the actual truth is the other side is the one lying to you. Your life, you're struggling and all. I can help you fix your issues, while the other side is lying to you and making it seem like you're privileged and everything should be going well. And I guess I want to know, how would you respond to that?
Well, I think actually Jordan Peterson is correct there, only because Sam Cedar is philosophically illiterate. Sam Cedar
Sam
tried.
Harris.
Oh, sorry, not Sam. Oh my God, I did it again. Not Sam Cedar. I do this all the time. It's the Sam's. Sam. Yeah, Sam Harris, not Sam Cedar. Sam Cedar's great and not philosophically illiterate. Okay, Sam Harris is though because he tried to cross the Izot gap. The problem with Sam Harris is that his argument for meaning was this like appeal to an objective bridge between ethical normative values and like descriptive values based on what people sort of intuitively like or dislike. If you can imagine a hell and hell is painful, would we not agree everyone would dislike it? If we can agree everyone dislikes it, would we not then say that it is bad to be in hell? And the problem with that is that it's really dumb. Philosophy doesn't work that way. Even if everyone thinks that a thing is bad, that doesn't make it morally wrong. That just means people dislike it. It doesn't cross the Izot gap. You can't cross the Izot gap. Jordan Peterson however, is religious. So he can appeal towards religious morality, which means that he can root his axioms in a kind of like divine command theory, which I disagree with, but it is consistent. I think that in this respect, Sam Harris really failed to do what he was trying to do, which was provide a concrete grounding for somebody who has lost everything and is trying to build their life back up from scratch. And a lot of people want that, right? Because society is really bad at giving people meaning, especially men. I think that women have been given a couple of narratives on how to like build meaning in their life. They're not consistent and they're not perfect, but we kind of have like this, oh, girl boss, you can have it your way. You can be a career woman or you can have a family. Good luck juggling those two, haha. But it's something, right? Like it's a narrative. But for a lot of guys, it's like there's this really weird, like, okay, you have to be a provider, but, you know, also everyone has a two-income household today anyway, so it's not like you can be the only provider. And like you want to be independent, but like it's not really possible to be a lone warrior cowboy in modern society, so you don't actually get to be that. And you want to be like sexually forward and confident and a leader, but you don't want to be creepy. And most guys who try to be those things are creepy. And it's like there's so much jumbled shit for guys that they don't know how to follow. Jordan Peterson tries to cut through that and give people some meaning. I think he's better at doing that than most, but I still think that he's wrong. And I think he pushes people in a bad direction when he does that.
Yeah, back in the day, like I mean, nowadays, like the few stuff I've seen of him seem like, I don't know what happened to him, but he's gone kind of like, yeah, he's out of his mind now. But um, yeah, Sam Harris. I think that's the biggest criticism people have is that I think the moral landscape is not doesn't make sense. He doesn't really answer to that. He doesn't have an actual answer. While Jordan Peterson, even though his answer is basically, well, God planned everything for you. But well, I think he goes even like he says that even if you're an atheist, you should act as if God exists, because otherwise a society that's fully godless is a degenerate society to live in or whatever.
Yeah, that's
But
really stupid. The idea that you can't like this is a very common like 4 IQ religious thing where it's like without God, wouldn't everyone just be murdering and raping each other? Which is obviously not the case. I mean, think about it. There are human pantheons that have had gods that literally celebrate bloodshed, and we still built civilization despite of that. Like if you were a Spartan warrior back in ancient Greece running around killing people, there are plenty of gods in your pantheon who'd be like, yeah, dude, keep that yeah, you're doing great. And in spite of that, they were still the center of civilization and democracy for their time. So it's like, you know, not only do you not need God, you can have pro bad things gods, and people will still find ways to cooperate, develop systems of morality, and work together. Not perfectly, but, you know, I just don't think it's that easy.
yeah, there was that edgy atheist meme of like I think Steven Weinberg who said that like good people are good, bad people are bad, but for a good person to do something bad, it requires religion. I probably don't fully agree with that. I'm sure there's like I don't think it's fair, but it just reminded me of that. But yeah, do you see there's something there with Andrew Tate going from atheist to Muslim, Sneeko going from atheist to Muslim, Jordan Peterson going from kind of atheistic to Christian now. Do you think there's something in there that people who give self-help advice for men end up needing religion to push that, and not just religion, there's religion and pushing against societal degeneracy, whatever they mean by that.
I think it's the exact same thing as like the Tradcaf stuff. And none of them are actually Muslim, by the way. Andrew Tate's not Muslim. Sneeko's not Muslim. They're doing it for a couple of reasons. One of them is because there's a bunch of reactionary shit happening right now in the West that is being kind of backed and funded by the Saudis. Like there's like no joke. There's a reason why Andrew Tate has like strong ties to the UAE, right, in Dubai. It's not a like these aren't $0 connections. These are business connections. There are like we saw the same thing with the World Cup in Qatar, where there's this weird like the American conservatives have been anti-Muslim for a long time, but then suddenly it's like, oh, well, actually, you woke leftists, you're pushing your culture on Muslims when you say they have to allow gay people into the stands or have a gay flag in the logo or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, weird. There's kind of like a cultural parallel happening right here. I think a lot of it is just like which groups can I appeal to and which like benefactors are paying me money to pretend to be aligned with their groups. But it's the same thing as the Tradcast stuff, right? Like ultimately the goal of these moves are just to push people to the far right. And it's a lot easier to do that when you push the religious aspect as well, because it's easier to form like ultra reactionary, morally concrete worldviews if you're doing so with the perceived like backing of divine right. You know what I mean? Coming down on gay people is a lot more fun when you're doing it from the perspective of a warrior of God than from a random like serial masturbator, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. With I mean, uh, I don't know if Andrew Tate or Sneeko are like not real Muslims. So to know because uh, I know that's a problem that I have a lot of like I guess American progressives. It's that it feels like it's very hard to be anti-theistic if you're like for like non-Christian religions. If you're in the United States or in Canada, uh, I feel like it's hard because the only people that are truly, I mean, back in the day at least, I feel like it's kind of changing now, but for a long time, it felt like only American conservatives would be even willing to criticize Islam or like Hinduism or other people or groups like that. While uh, if you even tried to do that in certain like progressive spaces, which are more like American based, it felt like you'd be seen as insensitive towards the cultural beliefs of people.
Yeah, it's a weird inconsistency because on one hand, like conservatives have never really had a problem with Islam because they don't know what it is. A lot of what
Mhm.
they like see, a lot of the stuff far right Islamicist groups do, like conservatives would agree with. They're doing that now, you know. I mean, I remember back when the Taliban retook Afghanistan after withdrawal, and there were conservatives on Twitter who were like, well, at least they know there are only two genders. And it's like, okay, well, really, Christian conservatives and Muslim conservatives are basically hand in hand in a lot of this stuff. They literally worship the same God. Um, what a lot of conservatives are really doing is just like being mad at brown people. I think that lefties should be kind of ubiquitously critical of organized religion, but it's kind of difficult with all the like sort of cultural messaging that we've had when it comes to Islamophobia, where like you can make a statement that is definitely anti-Christian, like putting the Bible in a vat of piss, like that one artist did, and it's like, okay, that's not anti-white, that's anti-Christian. Like you'd have to be an idiot to interpret that as anti-white. But if you did the same thing with the Quran, you know, I feel like a lot of people would consider that is like anti-Muslim because it's like, well, you know, the messaging gets so mixed up there.
Yeah, there's this guy who's like he was an atheist activist. He drew like a smiley and said this is Prophet Muhammad. He got in trouble for it, so he had to like redo it and write this is not Prophet Muhammad. Just over like a smiley. Yeah,
That's really dumb. By the way, that's really dumb in particular. The fact that there are any people who call themselves leftists or even liberals who go along with that insane you cannot depict the prophet shit, that's insane to me. There are liberals who are like, oh wow, you depicted the Prophet Muhammad. Wow, why are you so Islamic? No, that's like fucked up. You literally like you draw Muhammad on social media and people will be like in your DMs, in your quote tweets, calling for your death. The idea that any leftist or liberal would be like, well, why did you start shit with them by doing that first is fucking disgusting to me. There is a kind of like paternalistic bigotry of low expectations from some people on the left where they see Muslims and they're like, well, they can't help being fucking insane. So you just shouldn't like, you know, rile them up to begin with, which I think is really dumb.
yeah. In Canada where I live, so on the East Coast in Ontario, a university like for Pride, they had like a graphic thing, and in front of it they had two hijabi women making out. It was meant to be like a Pride thing. The Muslim Association complaining into university, and the university had to release an apology for drawing two hijabi women making out. I thought, like, why, and like they had to apologize for being insensitive to the feelings of Muslims or whatever. Like, this is just wild to me.
No, it's yeah, it's really dumb. They like to softball that shit because they don't want to come across as conservative. I think it's really bad to kind of like to play into those biases. Reactionary thought is not like a West specific stuff. It's all over the world, so you got to be careful with that. Yeah, I don't know. I think I saw that on Twitter the other day because of like Destiny. Like Destiny
Mhm.
posted a stupid clip art drawing of Muhammad. I
Yeah,
man, I don't know.
yeah. No, he's been pissing off a lot of Muslims, and I think Sneeko like called him like a cuck because I think his wife flirted with Sneeko in DMs or something.
Sneeko calling somebody a cuck is fucking hilarious. I the only difference between Sneeko and Destiny in that respect is that Sneeko's ashamed of it and Destiny doesn't give a shit, which is far better the position from anyone's perspective, on that issue. You know, I genuinely cannot believe that Sneeko has like socially survived the shit with him being a cuckold or him saying he likes the movie Cuties or whatever. But I guess that being pedophilic hypocrites is kind of like big in that space. So I don't know.
Yeah. Just like a final topic on, I mean, I'll end there. You said something that I think I kind of disagreed with. I forgot to bring it up earlier. It was about, just give me a second, I'll find it. Yeah, you said that a pickup artist is teaching guys all these techniques and how to cold approach, how to flirt, and all that stuff. Well, instead, men needs to learn to become genuine and respectful and like form meaningful relationships with women. But isn't that just like very? It's like the same advice as like just be yourself or just be genuine or just be like just be honest or whatever. It's like it's not like for me if I'm talking to a guy who doesn't know at all how to handle social situations, there's nothing he can do practically with that advice. Well, if I tell him walk up to a girl, say hi, say I don't know, some say this sentence, he has something there to go that's practical that he can apply and try it out many times. While just telling him like you need to learn to form genuine relationships and stuff, it's not very helpful in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think it's how you like build up those instincts, right? Ideally, you want a person who can socialize, um, and do it kind of like intuitively without having to think about it that much. And I think that for a lot of people, this starts very small. Like, hey, talk a little bit with the grocery bagger the next time you go to the grocery store, right? Or like go in a shop, look around a little bit, and ask the like a shopkeep or an employee if they have something that you kind of want, you know, and say thank you whether they do or don't. You know, like little stuff like that. But over the long run, I think it's about building up a good like kind of conversational feedback loop where you learn how to best engage with others. And this is where I think the be yourself stuff kind of does matter because one of the issues with rote advice with people socializing is that a lot of people, not just guys, everyone, are fucking boring. Um, you know, I know people have varying standards like this, but I have stopped talking to so many people because they're fucking boring. And I don't think it's because they're like innately boring or they're dumb or whatever. I think a lot of it is because they're kind of like socially stiff. So they play it safe all the time, you know, like every conversation, they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to stick to like, you know, it's basically like the cartoon, you know, like, well, how's the weather, right? It doesn't like iterate or develop. And for that, you know, I think the best thing you can do is learn to be really passionate and enthusiastic about stuff you care about while also developing a set of skills to learn when the other person doesn't want to listen to you anymore. Because that's the insecurity that gets a lot of people like really choked up, right? Like the fear that they're going to go on a minute or 2 minute long tangent and the other person is like quietly just seething, like dying inside. And the fear that they're not interested in what you have to say, like that sets a lot of people off. So if you learn when people are engaged with what you're saying and you learn to recognize it, I think you can get away with like a lot of kind of weird stuff, you know? Like you can be a kind of like a quirky weirdo. And I like the idea of people being confident in that. Like that's good messaging to me. Like don't just learn to hide the quirky weirdo shit. Learn to complement the quirky weirdo shit with a good set of skills for learning when they're okay with what you're saying, you know? And that to me, that's what I try to promote. That's what I think is best.
Okay, yeah, I know. Just like a final question I forgot to ask you earlier. Um, I just second something I might say more like of an advice that I might ask from you.
Hmm?
When it comes to like transgender like topics, if I'm talking to a guy who in his mind he defines a woman as adult human female, under his definition, a trans woman is not a woman. But how would I convince him that trans women are women?
That's really complicated because the problem is like we're dealing with like category descriptions that a lot of people don't even think about. It's like a very baseline linguistic thing that a lot of people never consider. What does it even mean to be like in a category? And the answer is like these categories are constructed arbitrarily for our benefit, you know? What we consider like race is a good example. It's pretty obvious when a person is white and a person is black. If you're like if it's like me next to Denzel Washington or whatever, like you can make an easy call. But there's like a spectrum between Denzel Washington and myself where it wouldn't be easy to make a call. And at the same time, like these standards have shifted with time, right? Where like Latin people are considered white often in America, but that wasn't always the case. And it's challenging these categories sometimes. It's like, can you imagine going back in time to like 1863 and showing a person 20 different photos of Ariana Grande and going, okay, this is a white woman. You know what I mean? Like, okay, here we go. Please study this portfolio carefully, okay? In the future, this woman is white. Do you understand? Like, he would shoot you, like, on the spot. So I don't know how you could convince that person, or indeed, like, at least easily or with one line. But I guess I would try to focus on, like, the main question is, okay, are they hateful or are they just disagreeable? A lot of people legit just think that trans people are wrong, but they're not like hateful. And some people have like an actual chip on their shoulder about trans people. And if they're hateful, I don't think you can do much in that moment. Like they're too invested. It takes too much time. But if they're just like if they just disagree with trans people, I think what you should focus on is rather like, okay, you know, what would it take for you to move over on this in your mind? Like if we had a machine that could change a person's sex entirely, chromosomes and all, from one to the other, would you accept that person as trans? And then work it back from there. Okay, what if you had a machine that changed everything about their body, but their chromosomes were inert, but still the same as what they were born? Like, okay, roll it back. And then I think you can kind of have an interesting convo there, where it's like, it's really arbitrary. Hormones do a lot, you know, like you can't change chromosomes yet, but the only purpose chromosomes have is to inform the hormone washes that you receive. Well, not the only purpose, but the sex hormones. So if you take hormones or if you take puberty blockers before you experience male puberty, and then you take female hormones and you never got a male puberty, like your body shifts a lot, you know, like there's, yeah, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I tend to do that. It's a tough question, man. I really wish this culture stuff or this culture war stuff would just die down. Like trans people are just trying to chill and like get high.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, especially online spaces can be very toxic just with nature because that's why it gets more clicks, that's why it gets more engagement. But I kind of wish people, I hope some eventually people reach a point where they just chill with different people having different identities and just, you know, let live and let live in a way, I guess. But yeah, about yes, for some reason, like you bring up the issue about like knowing like the categories and stuff like that. It reminded me of like when people were debating whether XXX Tentacion could say the N word just because was he like a percentage of black required? What's the threshold? But yeah, thank you very much for coming on to have a chat. I'm really appreciative of you taking your time for this conversation, and I really admire your work because I really appreciate because I'm from like a different country, and where I'm from, all the anti-religion activists tend to be far left people. Where so when I came over here and I started seeing like even being somewhat critical of religions were like because I came here when I was peaking my edgy atheist phase. I'm still an anti-theist at heart, but I've turned it down a bit. And I really appreciate seeing like a leftist who does anti-religion stuff kind of proudly, you know?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a prerogative. I'm not against religion being practiced individually, but as institutions, like these are so obviously like roots of hierarchy that have to be like at least challenged, you know? I really enjoyed the convo as well. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a fun convo.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully we'll interact again in the future.
Yeah, you know my email and Discord
Yep.
for that matter. Wait, no, talking over stream bullshit.
Yeah.
You know my email.
Yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Is it okay if I plug myself before we
Please, oh,
leave?
please, yeah, please go ahead.
So yeah, I do reaction content to different takes on social media and like from different types of influencers. If you'd like to see more of it, and I have conversations with people from different sides. If you'd like to see more of this, you could please check out my channel, Vix Life, VIKSLIFE. And yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I don't know if I should tell you to plug yourself because obviously the size is a bit different. But yeah.
No, I'll leave it a mystery to all your fine people. You know, if they find me, they find me. It'll be like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day.
Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Bye.
Well, that was nice. I didn't know how contentious it would be, but I liked it a lot. Yeah, that was nice. It's really important to focus on the pickup artistry stuff. I think his definition of pickup artistry expands to include a lot more positive stuff than mine does. But I have like such negative preconceptions about the whole thing. But like obviously, like I agree with him on most stuff. So yeah, Bosch, I love your shirt. Thanks. It was from Forever 21. I liked it so much and it fits so well that I ordered like 2 other ones that are just like this. Um, yeah. He kept proving you were right about about the lack of dating advice from the left. Yeah. Look, just as a reiteration, okay, and Tempest Orion, include this in the bit, okay. What I've always said, all right. Listen, the dating game really is skewed against men. Okay, I mean that sincerely. It's not like I'm not doing a bit. All right. Women face a lot of bad shit, but in terms of like the ability to find people who care about you and to get up with them and date and love each other, like that is easier for women because women aren't expected to do the approach and blah blah blah. Okay, and the big difficulty with men, especially men who are like left leaning, is how do I be the confident, like direct first one to approach guy that women want without being creepy or without reaffirming like negative masculine tendencies that I don't want to represent. Like how do I like meet the middle line there, you know? And the honest like answer for this is weaponized autism, okay? You have to learn how when people are engaged with you, and once you can identify if they are or are not, you can do whatever you want. Like seriously, the life you are free. You are free as long as you can know when the person you're talking to is interested or disinterested in what you have to say. That is that's your power. You have the ability to do this. Okay. But in the meantime, the best thing that you can do is casual socializing. Okay. Talk a little bit with like the grocery bagger. Talk a little bit to service workers at like shops. Like, you know, oh, do you have this? Do you have that? You know, a little bit of conversation. Talk a little bit to just the people around you. Go to social events. If you're into like nerdy stuff, you can usually go to a hobby shop, and hobby shops are phenomenal places to interact with people because people who work there are passionate. People who go there are passionate. They're usually mega nerds who have spent thousands of dollars on like Warhammer or whatever the fuck, Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And you can usually have like a really interesting convo with them. And they are, guys, I have literally never had like a negative social experience casually talking with somebody at a hobby shop. Not once, okay? I know there's a stereotype of there being like fat neckbeards who will be like, oh, so you're a fan of Warhammer, huh? In the year 31 millennium, what did the Emperor do to, like, I know that's a stereotype, but in my experience, I've never actually met those people. Maybe you'll meet them if you're doing like actual games, like you're bringing your 3,000 point army or whatever. But I think if you just go there to talk, overwhelmingly, dude, there are so many gay people at hobby shops. Did you know that? If you go to like an independent hobby shop in your city, I guarantee you'll find like colored hair. In fact, 50-50, you see a trans woman. For real. No joke. Like the community is like so positive and queer, and you know maybe you're not queer, but I still think that generally queer communities tend to be a lot friendlier than non-queer communities. So going there and socializing a little bit can be really good for you. Have a positive conversation, and just remember, and this is the most important thing. Okay, you have to remember this. Okay, if you fuck up, if you're awkward, or you say something weird, or the person you're talking to doesn't seem interested, that happens to literally everyone. Everyone, the most confident people in the world have this happen all the time, okay? This is like having conversations with people and those conversations turning out well. It's like playing skee ball, okay? Even the best players in the world aren't going to hit dead center every time. Everyone makes mistakes. It's not like nobody does a hole in one every time they play golf. Like no, it's not a 100% win rate process for any human alive. So don't beat yourself up over it. It's not a big deal. Don't think about it a bunch because they won't. They're not going to be thinking a week, 2 weeks, a year from now, oh wow, remember when that one guy at the store was like kind of weird? They don't care. They won't. They will not. So just go out there and be not too hard on yourself, okay? Why do so many Vosh fans have social anxiety? As much as I would like to make fun of my community, don't think it's actually a my fan thing. It's the internet. People are really lonely these days. Most of my community is like younger people, and they tend to be a little bit more online because like online politics is kind of a niche community to an extent. And you know, we're talking like young 20 somethings, sometimes even below 20, and a very online portion at that. Like a lot of them are, you know, kind of lonely. Yeah, well, it would, I have pretty severe anxiety disorder from stuff like being bullied since second grade. Well, no time like the present to unlearn those habits, huh? We all gotta interact. I can't be everyone's therapist. I don't know what's best for you. But I do think, generally speaking, it's good to go out there and try to get some practice. Whenever I'm out there in a social situation, like, sorry, I don't want to say social situation. Whenever I'm out there in like just any kind of venue, any kind of business, I take the opportunity to talk to people when I'm there as much as I can reasonably do, Like if I'm waiting for something at a cashier or when I'm grocery bagging, I'll try to like talk the whole time. Unless I get the feeling they're not interested, in which case, obviously they're working, I'll let them be, I'm not going to bother them. But for the most part, I try to be active and conversational. You're crazy though? I don't think it's that difficult. What do when no want to go out or talk or even do anything? That's called depression, and there's medication for that. Um, Very true. I got my current GF because I could go on about my interest, like music, movies, and geography and stuff, but also always wanted to hear about whatever she was interested in. Every partner that I've ever had has told me that they like listening to me talk. Obviously, because I talk a lot, I gravitate towards people who are good listeners, and they likewise, as good listeners, will gravitate towards people who talk a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a natural, just human. It it's just how people are. Um, if you're more of a listener or more of a talker, it'll affect the kinds of people that you want to engage with. You do have a great talking voice. Yeah, and it's true. I have a nice voice, but that doesn't mean that like you don't have to be like me to be socially successful. And for one, by the way, a lot of this stuff is really variable. I've been single for over 2 years now. A lot of that, honest to God, is just me being lazy. And a lot of it is also like, being a YouTuber. There are pretty specific expectations that I have for like any future partner that I would want to have, and that like kind of narrows my dating pool a little bit. But there are people who are less charismatic, less social, and less attractive than me who have never been single for more than 6 months in their life. There is so much variability out there. Never tell yourself like, oh yeah, because I'm such and such, I'll never be successful, because you're lying to yourself and you're a fucking pussy if you rely on stuff like that. If you want to calm yourself with the reassuring, bullshit that oh well, I'm just like this so it won't work for me. Like that's bullshit and you're bullshitting yourself. There's nothing wrong with taking your time, but if you're telling yourself, "Oh, it would never work anyway because this that," like that's bullshit, and you're being a pussy. What if you just don't have anything or know anything to say in an interaction? You do. You're just too nervous to say it. Everybody has things that they're thinking about, and you can vocalize your thoughts. You choose not to because you think that those thoughts aren't worthy of being spoken. That's an insecurity issue. There's always something to say. What if you tell yourself that but still try? Well, as long as you're trying. Yes, you can also ask them questions. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. We've got stuff. We've got stuff to talk about. Vosh, what do you think about on a daily basis? A lot of things. I tend to have more than one thought in a day. Okay. Sorry. Wait, hold on. Mr. Squeaky Shoe, I'm afraid I don't know. There are probably people in chat who know more than me on that subject. The Pentagon is denying releasing evidence of war crimes that Russia committed because it'll set precedent for American soldiers being charged. That makes sense. That seems like something the Pentagon would do. But Vosh, I'm so jealous when someone else has a GF and I can't do shit. Work past those feelings. Vosh, you are hairy. That is true. I am hairy. There we go. Now we're living the Hawaiian shirt life. All right. We have stuff to talk about. In 36 minutes, we're going to be talking to a historian on LGBT issues and the history of genocidal rhetoric against LGBT people. It's going to be an informative conversation, and because it will not be a debate, I expect that 90% of you will leave, but I'm trusting that you'll be better than that, okay? Defy my expectations. Be better than this. In the meantime, we have stuff to look at. Oh, hold on. We're not going to rep this long term. It's kind of difficult to button up the shirt because I have a thumb bandage. There we go. We are the 90%. Yeah. All right. I see Matt Walsh is arguing with Hunter Avalon. We might be able to go over that soon, but there's something that we have to look at first. Ooh, do we have time to look at this? Fuck, we don't. Okay, I really want to talk about the massive 2,600 pages of leaked emails that prove that the right is dishonestly pushing the anti-trans stuff as a political strategy. But that's going to take more than the 35 minutes that we have to go over. After our conversation with the LGBT historian, we also have what might actually be a debate with somebody who challenged my positions on COVID. But after that, maybe we'll have time? Okay. I don't want to rush that segment. That's important stuff. I can't rush that. Okay, let me pee real quick. Recently, somebody left the Daily Wire. I think that might be fun to look at. Give me a second. Whoop. See, it fits nicely. I like this shirt. Ugh, can't wait. Can't wait for the day my chest pains are over. Okay. Have you seen the new Not Just Bike video on SUVs? Yes, I have. Pretty wild. Do you even own any pants? I own one pair of pants. The Finster subreddit is mad at you for the E thing? Wait, they're mad at this? Vosh on Finster. I said Finster is almost certainly on estrogen. He's got really smooth skin, so he must be on estrogen. I don't know, sounds like a skill issue. Has he never seen a male bodybuilder? Smooth skin is just the result of washing, shaving, moisturizing regularly. That is not always true. I'm not a big fan of Vosh. He doesn't know Finn at all, yet immediately comes up with an opinion. He does the same on almost every other... Wait, what? Wait, what? It's so weird when communities that I don't engage with are mad at me with, like, pre-existing... All I said... I've seen what Finn's body looks like. He posts it on Twitter. Okay. Why are they... how am I supposed to do research on whether he's taken estrogen? I really don't think it's cool to insinuate something like this just because they look pretty or have smooth skin. Why are they calling it an insult? Wait. Oh, yeah, Finn looks really feminine and smooth. He's probably on estrogen. I don't think it's appropriate to suggest something like that. What? Smooth skin is such a funny way to accuse someone of being... Oh, why are... Well, someone's never heard of Twinks. Vosh is pan and has absolutely heard of Twinks, which is what makes this so much worse. What? Why is it bad? I'm sorry. Is there like some standard here that I've violated? Like, is there like a pact in the Finster community where, like, yeah, this is all natural testosterone energy? They don't consider the same as if you said a bodybuilder was on T. I accuse muscular people of being on testosterone all the time. Tons of muscular people take steroids. I probably will if I ever get super beefy. Why? Yeah, Vosh media takes are bad? What? Media? It's, I just accused a femboy of being on E. What does that mean? What does that mean? Vosh has a history of being an awful human being. Oh, what does it mean? What the fuck? What? What did I do? What did I do? Okay. Same shirt, by the way? No, different shirt. Similar shirt, though. I mean, this was just yesterday. You should try talking to Finster. I don't have enough clout to talk to Finster. His community thought he was on estrogen in the past too, but he's taken a test since then to show his testosterone/estrogen levels aren't far off from normal. If you just said that to me, then I'd be like, oh, damn, cool. He's just like really feminine then. Why is it a big deal? If couldn't you just be like, nah, hey, I think he's on E. No, actually, he's not. Oh, wow, that's cool. We did it. Okay. You'd think you'd take it as a compliment, like as a femboy. Like, no, I'm just naturally this feminine. Well, okay. All right, well. He's natty? Yeah, they're literally treating it like a bodybuilder getting accused of steroids. Like, he's natty! Okay. Okay, hold on. Fuck, do we have enough time for this? We have 30 minutes, okay? We have to act fast. The Daily Wire recently had a defector, if you can believe it. Not total ideological conformity in that space. Christina Buttons. What a name. I'm leaving the Daily Wire. I work hard getting the facts right and using precise language because of the heated nature of the gender debate. With so much at stake, while their pundits dump gasoline all over it for entertainment and clicks. I can't believe it, but she's actually saying, like, okay, look, you know, I'm not pro-trans or anything, but these guys are psychotic. And she's not wrong. After much consideration, I'm tending my resignation to the Daily Wire, a publication which I've dedicated my time and passion as an investigative reporter for the last 6 months. Oh, and just so you guys know, she's not just like a random person there or anything. She's in Nashville, Tennessee, where the Daily Wire's house. So she's in-house. Not like just some random like person who wrote 2 op-eds or whatever. When the documentary What is a Woman was released in 2022, I thought it was a brilliant commentary on the state of our culture. Matt Walsh didn't insult his interviewees, but instead let them embarrass themselves with deeply incoherent attempts to answer a question any first grader should be able to answer. Again, we're not standing her. She's not an ally. Even my liberal parents loved the movie, okay? So when the Daily Wire approached me with the opportunity to write exclusively on trans issues with an emphasis on pediatric gender medicine, I accepted. There were difficulties working for a decidedly conservative news and media outlet, which I anticipated. Oh god, we're kind of short on time and there's still a video segment we have to watch. Okay, we're skipping ahead. I was told the Daily Wire stance was that adults could live their lives however they pleased as long as they kept kids out of it. That was a message I could get behind. But recent videos and posts have weakened my confidence in their commitment to this message. On Valentine's Day, Matt Walsh did a segment on his show about transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney that has now been viewed by millions. You, quote, "You are weird and artificial. You are manufactured and lifeless. You are unearthly and eerie. You are like some kind of human deepfake," Walsh said. "Everyone who looks at you will see something pitiable and bizarre." We didn't go over this, but it was basically just him saying that trans women are Untermenschen. That's basically all that was. Walsh has defended these statements as good strategy because, he says, they rally the conservative base. He adds his goal is not to convince the other side, but to defeat, humiliate, and demoralize his opponents. This triggered a race to the bottom, with other social media personas one-upping each other to see who can take more extreme stances. Yes, it goes on for a while. And this actually ends up unironically being a pretty, not comprehensive, but at least a somewhat comprehensive document on the extent to which the Daily Wire has degraded in its rhetoric against trans people, going from trans women aren't women and also keep your hands off kids to very explicit, like, we need to destroy trans people as a social category. And it goes on as such. Leaving the Daily Wire, but not leaving the fight. As an independent journalist, I will continue my commitment to factual and rigorous reporting on gender ideology. We need to get her on. Her "I'm leaving the right" post over here was met with quite a bit of criticism. In fact, it even got a response from Matt Walsh himself, who dedicated the title of his live stream that day 4 hours ago to the event. We need sound, Matt.
One of my colleagues, the Daily Wire, had decided to leave the company. And this is not exactly breaking news. People come and go all the time, as is the case at any large and growing company. What made this unique is that I learned about her resignation.
She just wants the people around her to be less rude. Okay, so I want to be clear. She's not an ally. She's still transphobic. However, what she represents is a return to the kind of reactionary conservatism that I was experiencing far more often when I started my channel. People who still care about empiricism, people who actually do have sincere beliefs that they will defend, not a perfectly nihilistic, like hate-mongering fervor. Even if she is not a ally, she is a representation of a better and more sane kind of reactionary thought. And in that respect, I support her leaving. Hopefully that makes sense.
From a blog post, which was then picked up by outlets like Mediaite and the Daily Dot, and amplified, of course, by employees at Media Matters, where she, in part, blames me for her decision to quit the company. Christina Buttons was her name. She's a reporter hired just a few months ago to cover issues related to gender ideology, especially the abuse of children that happens in the name of gender ideology. I appreciated the work that she did when she worked for the Daily Wire and never had any issues with her, as far as I was aware anyway. And then she tweeted this on Tuesday morning. "I'm leaving the Daily Wire. I worked hard getting the..."
We saw this part.
"Pundits and divisive rhetoric has driven her away." She writes in part, quote, "When the documentary What is a Woman was released in 2022,
we saw this part.
I thought it was transgender issues with an emphasis on transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney that has now been viewed by millions are like bizarre." He adds that the goal is who can take more extreme stances. She goes,
"Wow, that's kind of crazy." Matt Walsh decided to read out the exact same portion of the article that we wrote out. Like, I skipped most of it. I only read a portion of it. An hour-long video? No. It's a live stream. Only a section of this is dedicated to the subject.
Goes on to explain that there are people who she calls transsexuals who are not ideologues, she claims, and who she says, they know that they're not actually the opposite sex, even if that's how they identify. And she worries that my quote-unquote hardline stand...
Notice the conflation here, the idea of transsexuals and knowing they're not the opposite sex, as though, like, there's any trans woman on the planet who thinks that her sex instantly becomes female the nanosecond she identifies as a woman. I'm sure you could find one such person on Twitter, but I think the reason they take hormones is actually because they know that there's a biological difference between male and female sex behavior. Or not behavior, physiology. Do you think Walsh looks more ghoulish? Over time, this happens to all of them.
May be not only alienating them, but also fueling a, quote, sudden deluge of animus towards transsexuals. She continues, quote, "I can only assume that the enthusiasm generated by Walsh's hardline position encouraged another colleague of mine, Michael Knowles, to make a controversial statement at this year's Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC. As a journalist, I have to believe that there are reachable centrists, including moderate liberals who are uncomfortable with gender ideology but who have been insulated from serious coverage.
Okay, while this is going on, I'm actually just going to I'm gonna DM her right now. Hold on. Let's see if we can't get a nice, interesting conversation on this fine stream of ours.
Coverage of this medical scandal. Winning over hearts and minds is difficult enough without inflammatory statements such as transgenderism must be eradicated from public life. There's a critical distinction between speaking truth and being tactless, between sticking to the facts and sticking it to the libs. I'm keenly aware of the distinction between factual reporting and opinion. As a journalist and reporter, I dedicated my days and nights to meticulously surveying data, scouring the primary literature, and choosing the best words to accurately convey the truth. But such painstaking attention to details rendered meaningless when the company's flagship entertainers and personalities speak impulsively and deploy divisive rhetoric for entertainment and clicks. This is not a game. We cannot afford to make these issues overtly partisan. The bodies, minds, and lives of children are being permanently damaged, and everyone, not just reporters and journalists, has a duty to approach this issue with the seriousness it demands. Now, I admit that outside...
Now, obviously, I firmly disagree with her belief that trans children are being preyed upon or whatever, but it is interesting that in her case, she actually believes it. I feel like, in a way, Matt internally is kind of shaking his head, you know? Like, wow, you really believe this shit? Like, to Matt, none of this matters. This is all just a series of rhetorical points to fixate on to propagate the spread of far-right ideology. You know, Matt Walsh doesn't actually care about any of this crap. It's all just like what sells. It's all political strategy. Whereas she, misinformed and such as she may be, actually does seem to care about the treatment of trans children, to the point where she thinks that it's actually damaging to those trans children for conservatives to muddy the water by being so overtly genocidal to trans people. She's essentially saying, like, your untempered reactionary fervor is clouding the issue and preventing me from effectively advocating for my more specific and less reactionary but still reactionary position, which is interesting. You know, this doesn't happen that often. Not publicly, at least.
Of her articles on Daily Wire, I didn't follow Christina's work very closely, and so I didn't know that in recent weeks she had also been on Twitter accusing those who are too far to the right, as far as she's concerned, on trans issues, of transphobia, using that term exactly, calling people transphobes. Now, if I had known that this was a sort of person who unironically accuses people of transphobia, I would not have been too surprised by what happened yesterday. And even without knowing that, still not very surprised, because as we've seen over the last several weeks, there has been what we might call a kind of great sorting among the critics of gender ideology. Those who are not willing to go as far as is needed and to say everything that needs to be said have been weeding themselves out. And this is just the latest in that line, in that procession. They're turning against their own allies.
Remember what I said about outreach and consolidation? Remember what I said? Remember how I've said that consolidation, if done at the wrong time and inexpertly, can actually end up hurting the far right because it keeps them from working with groups of more moderate people that might actually be like able to assist them?
Doing it in public, thereby intentionally giving ammunition to the very people they were supposed to be fighting against. There's a reason why Media Matters picks this up. I mean, just as a general rule, by the way, if you are supposed to be opposing the left or opposing them on any of these issues, and you do or say anything that Media Matters finds useful, then that's a pretty good indication that you screwed up. But they do this to their own...
It's purity testing. You're completely right. It's purity testing. There was a time in the... there was a time for the far right where purity testing basically did not happen. Back during like the Trump era, for example, like 2015 to 2021, there was basically no purity testing on the right. If you expressed any support for any conservative position, they would immediately be like, yeah, whoa, a new friend, like anyone, you know? And now, I mean, we just saw Matt Walsh say that Jeffree Star is no ally because he is blue hair and pronouns.
Side because they were never fully on our side to begin with. And that's, I think, the crucial point here. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on the personal side of this, except to say that I worked in the same building as this person, right across the hall from her. If I'm not traveling, I'm in the office essentially from dawn to dusk and sometimes longer. So she would have ample opportunity to walk across...
No time to spend with your, like, 5 kids, no doubt.
...across the room and talk to me about her concerns. Could have had a private conversation as colleagues and alleged allies in the fight against gender ideology. Could have done that. But instead, she chose to say nothing to me at all and take her grievances to the public. In doing so, she not only questioned my approach and my strategy, but also my integrity and sincerity. Same for Michael Knowles, questioning it on his end too, accusing us of being mainly interested in clicks and entertainment, and insinuating that we're not taking the.
Are they not? I mean, she basically said the Daily Wire told her that their official position was that trans adults were free to do as they please, and it was just the kids stuff that they took issue with. And Matt Walsh and Knowles obviously are not adhering to that. So
the issue seriously enough. This is ironic, given that she made these accusations in a blog post where she used both my name and my picture and Michael Knowles' name and picture to get clicks. And at the end of her resignation, she even solicits personal donations. So it's like Matt Walsh is only in it for the money. By the way, if you agree with my complaints about Matt Walsh, please consider giving me money. It's a bold sales pitch, I will admit. We'll see if it pays off. But the personal insults are not my primary concern. I realize I'm a bit old-fashioned. You know, I was raised to always speak directly to people if I had an issue with them. I was also taught that.
What do you think Matt would have even said if she had brought this to him directly? If she had been like, hey, I really am concerned about the transing of our children, but I can't help but notice that the genocidal screeding has been increasing lately from some of you. You know, was I lied to? What would he say? Would he like laugh and go, yeah, obviously? What like, hold on. Yeah. Hey, Matt. I can't help but notice that, like, the Daily Wire seems to be committed to a purely genocidal attitude, and you were lying to me when you talked about only wanting to protect trans children.
What took you so long, idiot?
What? Is that how it would go? I don't know. What other... What other possible outcome could there be to that conversation? I have no clue what else he could say.
I shouldn't needlessly burn bridges with people who have helped me and may be able to help me in the future. I mean, I can remember being 17 years old and working at the local pizza place, and I was getting ready to quit. And my dad told me even then, make sure you don't burn the bridge. Don't want to burn the bridge with a pizza place. You never know when you're going to need them again. But these days, many people feel that whenever they quit a job, they have to nail their 95 theses to the door, publicly outlining every single...
Oh! Hey, apparently Ariana Grande posted this to, speaking of Ariana Grande, posted this to her Insta story earlier. That's nice. I really like this image. Don't want to see transsexuality? Pluck out your eyes. I like that a lot. That's cool. That's a good pro-trans sentiment from a big celebrity, you know? Yeah, don't want to hear about trans people gouge out your ears. We need more celebs on our side. Yeah, well, you know, vocal support is always good.
Single thing they didn't like about the place. They do that in the form now of, it's not so much a thesis on the door, but it's in the form of a TikTok video or, you know, a sub.
Oh, wait, I got a response from Christina Buttons. Hold on. I guess I'll just let the video play.
Or something like that. I would say that this is not only improper and an unfair way to treat people who've helped you professionally, but also just a very bad career move that you are destined to regret in the future. But that's just me, I suppose. Much more important point is that, again, this is someone who's just the latest in a line of people who are supposedly on our side in this fight, and yet have turned against those of us who they feel are too extreme or too harsh or whatever. And as far as that goes, I think there are a couple of crucial takeaways here. Now, I've already explained in strenuous detail why I believe it's not only morally justified, but also a good strategy to be blunt and more aggressive. I don't need to belabor the point any more than I already have, except to say that if you think that it's possible to win a cultural battle and bring about a massive social change while also being exclusively polite and mild-tempered and focused on...
So Pussy Walsh over here, sorry, I'm writing the thing, but I can still hear him with one ear. You might notice that he's not engaging with the central premise here. She isn't saying that he was impolite. She's saying that he was, or that the Daily Wire was dishonest about their stated position on this issue, and that he was being dishonest here, that he was lying about trans people in a way that muddied the waters for what she considered to be a legitimate fight against, like, the transiting of youth.
Compromise, then you have never studied history. Any history, I have to assume. Because that's not how this works, or has ever worked anywhere. Every social movement needs its frontline combatants. It's street fighters. You know, it's people who are willing to get their hands dirty.
This is like the shit I was saying back in 2020 to defend debate to all the, like, bread tubers who were like, oh, why do we need white guys doing debates in our This is like the same convo, except I was talking about, like, the diversity of tactics of, like, doing debate and taking the heat, and he's talking about the diversity of tactics of being openly genocidal. That is what he's doing here, by the way. He's like, okay, listen, man, diversity of tactics, all right? We need our people who are, you know, want to do another Holocaust. You know, you need to bring in that demographic. Obviously, that's what I'm here for. That's the main thing that I'm here for.
So if you think that I'm a confrontational jerk, maybe you're right. But the confrontational jerk community, okay, serves an important purpose. You need us, whether you like it or not. No cultural battle can be won or has ever been won anywhere in the world without us. Now, not everyone
Again, keep in mind, she was not talking about him being rude.
needs to adopt our approach or should adopt it. You see, this doesn't go the other way. I'm not out here saying, well, nobody should ever be polite. Nobody should be nicer. No one should be more gentle. I don't say that. As I've said many times, I believe I embrace a diversity of tactics.
Fuck! God damn it! Fuck! He really is alt-universe fascist me, isn't he? Fuck! God damn it!
So the problem isn't that these gentler and more squeamish people aren't adopting.
I'm hotter than him. I will not. We're getting one thing straight, okay? I'm hotter than he is. We're not arguing this, okay? And he is far more pedophilic.
Adopting our approach is that they think everyone should adopt their approach. And they're wrong about that. And that is also why, if you notice, on the left, they don't have this conversation. Have you noticed that?
What?
They never have this conversation. So on the right, we're constantly stuck. Every day, it's another version of the same debate. Are we being too mean? Are we being too mean to them?
Okay, this is just going to keep going like this. Hold on, really quickly. What the fuck smells bad in this room right now? Hold on. This is the cat thing. What the fuck are they doing? Didn't smell like that to me. Maybe it was.
Like pigeons running.
Yeah, pigeon. Are you...
Shit downstairs?
Maybe. I don't know. Fucking cats. Maybe one of them just farted. It's fucking disgusting, man. Oh my god. Okay, end the segment. Did they throw up in the carpet? No, the cats don't do that, thankfully. Just a fucking brap.
This pigeon, she smells like a skunk right now.
Pigeon smells like a skunk? Why does pigeon smell like a skunk? Do we need to wash her? Why would a cat smell like that?
Maybe she ate something weird.
Stinky. Fucking disgusting. Anal glands? Yeah, cats have anal glands. I don't... Isn't that only a male thing? What? Oh, hold on. We might. Never mind, one of the cats threw up. Maybe a pigeon? Alright, disgusting. Hate cats, except I love them actually. You didn't hear the herking? I'm streaming. Yeah, it wasn't on the carpet, it was on the fucking bed. Ugh. We were about to change the sheets anyway. What do they eat? Cat food! Would you watch Netflix content on stream if it was short? It sounds like a good way to get my channel deleted. Then why'd they throw up? Because they're cats. They're cats. You're giving the baby kitten food, right? They're fine. I think it was pigeon anyway. They're cats. Yeah, cats do be puking. They love doing that stuff. Yeah, they do be pukey. Uh-huh.
So one thing I can thank for Pigeon is that earlier today
I'm muting. Whatever, we'll deal with it. Okay, what were we doing? Politics? Politics is something that I've been known to do sometimes, I think. About right? Oh, sorry, I just hit the mute button accidentally. Okay, hold on. I have this. And we'll call in 3 minutes. Okay. Excuse me. That is disgusting, Rivera Life. I'm very sorry to hear that. There's got to be a solution. What are your take on politics? I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of politics, personally. Maybe we will get to talk to this person. Hold on. Oh, maybe we will be able to have a conversation with her. In fact, it looks like we can. I'll settle a schedule with her after the stream is done, because that takes a little bit more time and attention. Oh, really quickly before we get into the conversation, I know this is really random, but I assume a lot of you guys are familiar with Zero Punctuation. They're like a long-running, edgy video game review video series. Very long-running. I don't think I can play it, but today, just 6 hours ago, the guy who I kind of assumed was... What's up? Yes. Who I'd kind of assumed was, like, reactionary leaning, spent the first, like, 40 seconds of his video on Hogwarts Legacy calling J.K. Rowling a turfy cunt, like, 20 times. Which I thought was nice. Okay, close this, close that. We still have 2 conversations today. Zero punctuation is about as funny as Angry Nintendo Nerd or whatever. I do actually think that Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation is consistently funny. Whether or not his videos are actually a good review of the game, since they're mostly comedy-focused and they're only 5 minutes long, you know, that's a different subject. But in terms of the quality of his writing and delivery, I think that he's, there's a reason he's maintained relevancy for so long. Danil and Pigeon are battling. Is there a way to get on the stream and talk to Vosh sometime? No. I'm not real. This is all AI. There's no way to reach me. All right, let's do this call. Howdy. Oh, you can see Danil? He's slinking. Thank you, Vivo. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Wait, Vosh, why is there a keloid in your other ear still? Because it didn't get all the way removed from the first treatment. I'll just do it again. Pigeon is just outside of the camera's range. She's like sitting right next to the edge of the camera. She was following Danil. Oh, yeah. Goblin behavior?
Well,
Didn't
neither of them are sick enough to not want to play.
Yep, Danil's under there. He's under the thing. Woo! What was that? When she does her cat shake, she leans in her back legs, and she'll usually stand up when she does it. She, like, flies for a second. It's really cute. Okay, we're doing the call.
Hello.
Howdy!
Hi, how's it going?
Doing good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Wait, let me just close out because I was watching you. Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Gotcha.
Can't see you, but I can hear you.
I can fix that in just a moment.
Okay.
Wait, just a moment. Huh? Wait. Hold on. There's some kind of cat behavior. Oh, yeah, there we go. See? Okay, to the benefit of my stream audience, there's Danil. See, he's hiding. Hey, you closed the stream too early. Oh, now I lost my earbuds. It's all falling apart. Okay, hold on. All right, now I can hear you. Sorry. Okay, we turn the camera button on, and then we hit this
Oh,
button.
there you are.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey.
We're making it happen. Sorry about
What
that.
up? How's it going?
I'm doing wonderfully. How about yourself?
Great. Now that we finally got to doing this, so I'm pretty stoked.
Yes, and it's been a long while too. So without a moment to spare, let's get right to it. How are you doing?
It's been very interesting. Just doing this research over the last 6 months and just how relevant things have gotten. So I will allow myself to introduce myself to the stream. My name is Eva. My pronouns are she, her. I am a grad student, a teacher, historian, writer, and I primarily specify, or my specialty is the history of eugenics in the United States, specifically with Connecticut. And then I also focus on resistance movements to eugenics.
Nice.
So, yeah. So the reason I had reached out to you, like, I don't know, 8 months ago, was because there was, I believe, if I recall, there was like a first iteration of this anti-trans legislation that was coming out. And I recall that, you know, you were comparing it to Nazi Germany, and you're making a lot of allusions to, you know, the Weimar Republic and how things transitioned in that way. And a lot of people had said that you were being hyperbolic and just like too much at the time about.
But now, you know.
Oh, but now, right, exactly. And so had that no longer been relevant anymore to the discourse, I probably would have been like, all right, it's not worth even talking about anymore. But it just seems like that much more urgent now more than ever to talk about this history, to realize that eugenics is not just something that happened in, you know, 1920s and then like Nazi Germany, you know, took it and ran with it and now it's gone. That's not the case at all. And in fact, you know, eugenics over time, it reproduced itself and it molded itself to fit within the crisis of the time period and to fit within the rhetoric and the discourse that was at any given point. And then there are times where it's more popular, and these are times of crisis, economic crisis, and, you know, environmental crisis, and these things get more and more pronounced. Oh, my cat is like clawing at me. Do you want to see him?
Go ahead.
Come here. Ooh, this is Apple.
Oh, hello.
Apple Scruffs.
Did
And
they
he
just
sings.
meow, or did they
Yeah.
Okay, good. Important.
So anywho, he lost my train of thought. So yeah, as I was saying, so eugenics over time, it just like it molded and reproduced itself to fit within the rhetoric and what was popular at the time.
Yeah.
So anywho,
that's actually the reason why our conversation was delayed so much. It was a high IQ effort to hit at it when it was even more prominent in the discourse than it was previously. So we've seen a pretty clear progression over the past few years with regards to the discussion of trans people, where a couple of years ago, the conservative narrative about trans people was that they were poor and delusional, but ultimately it was like a sympathetic view. It was fake sympathy, but it was still sympathy. The idea like, oh, they're deluded, they don't know that men can't be women, blah-de-blah. But, you know, ultimately we conservatives are just concerned for their well-being by pushing back against this destructive ideology. And now, of course, like, we're seeing very explicit, you know, undifferentiated attacks, not only on the identity of the group, but also on, like, their innate value as humans. And things have moved so quickly, you know? And I feel like the signs were always there, but the more, the further along we've gotten, the easier it is to identify how bad it's getting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another really important distinction to make, and this is something that I don't know if it's going to come as a surprise to anyone, but looking at like early sexology research, you see that the distinction between who was pathologized and who was criminalized are distinctly along racial and class lines. And so if someone was, you know, a Black trans woman, they are considered, you know, degenerate, criminal, pedophiles, you name it. And then if they were an affluent white man, cis man, then they are mentally ill and deluded, and that they needed, you know, counseling. And they even said that they were exposed to too much civilization, that they were over civilized, and so they needed reform and to go along with what is considered, you know, normal gender and sexuality. But that's the question, is like, what is normal? What is defined as normal within this society, within this framework? Is it just to procreate, have babies, you know, continue the white race as they wanted it and envisioned it, and then try to sterilize, execute whatever they wanted to do to everybody else and contain them? And that's why there's the construction of this mass incarceration system, and the asylum system was to house people and take them out of society so that nobody else had to deal with it.
I've always argued that the the anti-trans bathroom bills were also pretty overtly genocidal, because if you take a trans woman, let's say, very obviously feminine trans woman, and you say, well, you can't use the women's restrooms, that's legal, and then if you're in the men's restrooms, you're at a high risk of, at the minimal, ostracization and a maximum violence. And the effective answer to that is, well, you just can't use public restrooms. And the denial of public services like that effectively means like you're cut out of, public restrooms aren't like a luxury. They're like a necessary thing to being outside. We're not all pissing in bushes, or at least I assume we aren't all. And if you can't do that, you're kind of precluded from like areas that don't already have gender neutral restrooms, and even that's not a guarantee.
Right. And that's the other thing that I've been looking into as time goes on, is this idea of like gay geography and of queer geography in general, of like what spaces are people allowed to occupy. And it kind of seems like a distant memory to many people. And I guess like we're coming back into this time period where congregating as a queer person in a public space was against the law. And, and so these bars, these spaces that were created for people to seek to and to form community were a space of subversion. And nowadays, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I'm in Connecticut, and it's pretty progressive as far as the United States goes. And so, the normalization of gay bars has been a thing probably since the 80s. And the amount of gay bars in the 80s and 90s, there were so many. I mean, almost every city had a few, or like at least one, and then the major ones had like a few. And now you'll be lucky if, I think there's like maybe 8, something like that. And those are specifically cis gay bars. There are very few queer spaces. There are no lesbian bars. And that's just one example of, as time went on, and queer people had become more and more ingrained into mainstream society, as, this is also after like post-civil rights and all that. They were able to go to a regular bar and just be themselves. But now we're definitely experiencing this regression. And as far as trans people goes, within the history, I know I was just talking to, because like part of my project is incorporating oral histories and incorporating the oral history tradition when we're talking about resistance movements, because the dominant, media class is not going to write you into history. And if you look at the primary source documents that exist, there's very few that talk about, never mind trans identity, they barely even talk about homosexuality.
Well, and you can see a lot of this and the value of this from a reactionary perspective, because when they talk about like the 1950s or 40s, they act as though gay people just didn't exist, like they were just totally removed from society, when in reality, like there was a very active policing of laws pertaining to like gender incongruence or sodomy, where like the police would constantly actually arrest people, raid bars, harass people for wearing the wrong gender clothing or this, that, the other, but it gets erased out of history. So when in retrospect, people look back in it and they're like, yes, of course. Well, basically everyone was just straight, and then gay people just kind of happened in the 60s, when the war has been ongoing for a long time.
And you'll even see it from like older historians, and it's kind of like a running joke and has turned into a meme that like historians will be like, oh, they were really good friends, when it's just so obvious they weren't. They were partners, or and obviously sexuality and gender over the years has definitely transformed, and how people relate to it and relate to one another or relate to themselves is definitely changed over the years. And there's nothing, you can't deny that, but that's also how culture has shifted. I mean, in the language that we use, there are words that we no longer use in our dialectic that they had back then. that are the same things. Like a lesbian relationship back then would have been called a Boston marriage. And it's like more or less the same thing. But not understanding that the way that people related to sexuality, for a time period, it was just something you did and not definitive of who you are, if that makes sense. And at some point that shifted. And it was definitely in this time where eugenics was being not only published, but validated in all of these academic spheres. And that's like a very important thing to keep in mind about eugenics is it wasn't just like a few people who had some really fringe ideas. This was dispersed all throughout public life. And places, institutions like Yale University, they created the American Eugenics Society, founded by Robert Yerkes, Irving Fisher. These were Yale professors. I think one of them was a president too, if I'm not mistaken. And like they put out this rhetoric that was like, yes, this is a legitimate science, and these are the categories of people, and this is how we are going to identify these people with these specific behaviors. And so that's when it became more of this identity marker and less about just how people moved about in society.
Yeah, and at the time, like, it wasn't even just eugenics was popular. It was that eugenics was unambiguously popular with progressives too, because there wasn't sociology basically didn't exist back then. So just the idea of someone going, well, we know evolution's a thing, and we can, we know that we've made dog breeds, so couldn't we just make humans better, smiley face? Like, that was something everyone thought in some form or another. And some people immediately were like, ah, yes, race war. But a lot of people were like, well, okay, well, obviously, we could all just be 8 feet tall. Wouldn't that be cool? Don't you want to be 8 feet tall? And like, even an upstanding, urban, educated, progressive type, I think, would have been into some form of eugenics back then, because there was very little understanding of the way these systems enforce themselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And there was, I'd say by like 1937-ish, people were starting to catch on that maybe this isn't the right thing. There were always people pushing back against it. There was always scholarship being published to dispute and refute this as a science. And in fact, the American Eugenics Society was started to legitimize it because there was always doubt in there. So that is important to keep in mind. But by 1937, as Hitler was starting to do his thing, and it was starting to be like, okay, maybe this isn't the right course of action. People pulled away from it. But again, they changed the language. So a great example that I have is the Sterilization League of New Jersey. It was started by this woman, Marion Olden, and she traveled to Germany to translate a propaganda film that was like about sterilization. Mm-hmm. She came back to the US, and at that point, again, it was just like not getting a good reputation. So they changed Sterilization League of New Jersey. They changed the name to Birthright Incorporated, and they changed the language of their aims. And so instead of them saying, some people aren't, meant to breed, so let's sterilize them. Instead, they changed it to say, well, we need to protect children, and children deserve to be born into a family with two stable parents and, who are financially sound and of sound mind and body. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. Like, yeah, every child deserves that. But then they're like, so we're going to sterilize these people. So the goal was the same. They just changed the framing. And I think it's also key that like they shift it to the children. That's a lot of parallels, what we're seeing now. Because how can you argue? Like, oh, you don't want that for children?
Yeah, well, you always do this, right? Like literally anything you do, it's for the kids. Like they literally said that the Holocaust was for the kids because the purging of like the German folk was necessary to secure a future, literally secure a future for our children. Like that, the 14 words refers to this. It's a ubiquitous like advocacy method. when like obviously they don't give a fuck about kids. They just have their own like social programs they care about. I assume that back in the early days of American eugenics, there were more people who in good faith would have thought like, oh yeah, of course, like we want to promote good health and we want to promote like good social standing for the, but as time goes on, like especially with Nazi Germany, right? Because then we all kind of see where the eugenics movement goes in the long run. You have to be more and more malicious to be a participant in the movement. And you know, I think even like right now, there's still discussion of this. You know, like CRISPR, the idea of like, well, you could get rid of hereditary diseases if you were, you know, edit like some stuff out when babies are still in the womb or whatever. But I feel like that desire is kind of secondary to what a lot of the early eugenicists really cared about, which is a kind of social purification. There's like, there are good people and bad people, and you can tell who the bad people are because they're smelly and they're homeless and they're on the street and they don't speak good English. And eugenics is just a method of not getting that, you know? And
Yeah.
obviously that's bad, but I think initially it was kind of muddy, like the idea of how bad you'd have to get to pursue that.
Yeah, it's a policy based action. They use it's not a science. They this ideology of disdain to justify and using the scientific method as a means to justify whatever action they want. And that's the thing about eugenics is like the logical conclusion is always genocide. It's never anything else. You start with one thing and like, oh, we want to do, you know, of course we just have like here's another example on the US-Mexico border back in like 1917 or 18 there was a typhus outbreak, and so they were like, okay, we need to install quarantine stations so that we can make sure that, you know, the typhus coming from Juarez doesn't get to El Paso. And so they said, okay, well, if you are suspected of having lice, you need to strip down and take a shower with soap, water, and kerosene. And yeah, and so of course there was an uprising. It was like a 200 women's riot resisting this policy. The riot was suppressed. The policy continued until like 1956, something crazy. But you know, they used this typhus outbreak as a means of creating this whole militarization of the border and to police the border and to police people's bodies and domestic workers who are just going from the next town over. Now they no longer can do that without being forced to strip down naked in front of, you know, an American guard. Now that policy, again, it evolved. Once the typhus outbreak was over, they still maintained this perspective that that Mexican people or Latino people were bringing in disease into the country. And so they then were spraying people with Zyklon B and then later DDT. And so there is actually some German journal that Hitler like basically gave the U.S. a shout out for our U.S.-Mexico border policy. So there's direct evidence that he was looking at our work, and within that journal, they actually showed images of the quarantine facility and how they were implementing cyanide gas treatments for people's clothing and stuff,
Right.
as kind of a blueprint for the extermination camps in Germany. And so, yeah, I mean, again, my point in all of this is to say that, you know, if you think that it can't happen here, you've got like liberal brain rot, and you need to be aware that this is absolutely happening, and we need to respond in kind. We need to, and whatever that means to every individual. For me, it's educating people as much as physically possible. You know, and for other people, it might be learning more self-defense tactics. For some, it's just simply donating money to, trans people that because they might need to get out of the place that they're in. And it's also our job as cis people to really push this urgency, and that this is really, really dangerous. And it is absolutely happening here. I was just watching earlier that you were showing like Matt Walsh, and like,
Great
he's a
guy.
perfect example. Ugh, like so fucking evil and gross. So, these are the people, and yeah, they're consolidating, right? They are forming their groups because this is going to be their primary messaging. And we have to really be aware of what is going to go on for 2024 because of this.
Yeah, it thinks it's, that it can happen here messaging is really important to reaffirm, because I think a lot of people don't really understand. It's not just a matter of how close we are to a lot of these policies, right? The idea that like anti-sodomy laws, which the Texas AG said he would be willing to enforce, literally like just arresting people for being gay, or the laws where you can be arrested for having 3 articles of clothing that don't match your gender, like in New York back in the 1960s. It's not just a matter of how close we are to those. You have to consider the relative social weight of returning to those policies after we've moved away from them. So this isn't to downplay any of the stuff that was going on back in the 1950s or anything, right? That's a big example, right? Segregation, right? Not a good thing, I've heard. Historians, they're still debating this. I think it wasn't a good thing. But to maintain segregation as the status quo back in the 1950s, it took a certain amount of effort. The effort it would take to bring society today back to that point would be monstrously large, incomprehensibly. It would be larger than any internal social movement that has ever rocked this country. It would be impossible. Likewise with gay and trans people, right? These laws against gay and trans people, they were only cut short relatively recently to bring things back to that point after we've had the public visibility of gay and trans people, their social prominence. It is a much greater expression of effort, to roll it back like that. And I think we have to remember they're willing to do that, which means the comparative level of genocidal intention on display here is, I think, far greater than just, oh, well, we'd be going back 20 years. Because that doesn't sound that bad, right? Like, oh, okay, we go back 20 years. Like, all right, well, time marches on. We'll get back to this. It's much worse than that,
Yeah. Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, no, just that. It is, people, conservatives will always do this, like, by conservatism, by radical Nazism, what they actually mean is we believe in the values of the 1950s. To return to the values of the 1950s would require like 3.4 gigahitlers. I mean, we would need just a preposterous amount of energy, far worse than just the latent energy of reactionary effort it would have taken to maintain the status quo back then. It's just a lot worse than that. Sorry, I'm not expressing my point very clearly here. I only mean to say the argument that, oh, we're just returning to the recent past is bullshit, because you can't just dial things back instantly. You have to undo everything, and that's just an ungodly amount of effort to do.
Yeah, and also this notion that like the tides of justice just like keep pushing in our favor, and we just gotta like keep up the old hope and spirit that like things will work in the way that we think that we'd like it to, is also inaccurate. And that the things that I've seen throughout this research is that it's with the work of people pushing back directly against this all the time, putting their bodies on the line, taking the risks for their communities. Now, the challenge that I'm seeing now, and I don't know if this is just like my own jaded, isolated self, but like I said, this diminishing of queer spaces and safe spaces for people to be in the public space is kind of terrifying. And yes, like, it's like, of course, I'm not saying that like we need to be segregated from people, but queer people do need their own designated space that is theirs and theirs only. And with this legislation that's coming out, that's like less and less a thing, less and less of a possibility. And so things like, technology, the fact that we're even able to have this conversation right now just shows that like we have it, we have tools at our fingertips that, you know, people 20, 30, 40 years ago didn't have. So we can use those tools to our advantage and sort of network and keep this going. Because we're going to have to directly do something. It's not going to be fought in, you know, the legislatures. It's not that they're not going to make the right decisions. And I honestly don't really have any faith in Democrats either, because all of these fights that were won were because of average people, normal people, not political people, taking direct action and challenging this dominant belief and challenging our definitions of normal, to assure our safety.
Well, I have it on good authority that only gay people are watching this stream, so we do, at least for a moment, still have that, those designated spaces. Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal of liberation along these lines is a complete lack of categorical distinction between gay or straight people or cis and trans, because it'll be utterly unremarkable in the way that we don't socially designate between blue-eyed and brown-eyed people. Obviously, we're not quite there yet. We're a little ways away from that. And it's, you know, resisting that is obviously a, you know, it's going to be a Herculean effort moving forward. I think there are some things that we have on our side, though, which is that, I've talked about this before, and I'm seeing this more and more. I don't think the GOP has actually done a phenomenal job in building up the foundations of their Fourth Reich here, you know? They're very good with motivating people with their genocidal rhetoric. You know, they've gotten quite good at that. But what the Nazis also did was, and I'm comparing the Nazis here in a favorable context relative to the Republicans, at least in terms of political messaging, was that the Nazis talked a lot about the future of Germany. You know, this is what we're trying to build. This is what it means to be German. This is our identity, so on and so forth. And the Republicans have... Oh, I'm sorry, just one moment. Hold on just a moment. I'm terribly sorry, but it seems that one of my cats is having a bit of a medical problem. Could you give me just a mo?
Oh, no. Yeah,
just a mo.
Of course.
You're with...
Hi, chat. I can't see what you're saying, so hopefully it's nice. This is bizarre. We just have Vouch's live stream. Hi, everyone. Oh my goodness. My social anxiety can't handle this. It's also bizarre because I can't see what you're saying. I know. Yeah, my friend just texted me, hey, you're awkward in the live stream. Yep, I know. But I don't know what to say. If I could read your text, if I could see your messages, I would say something. Oh, they're saying hi. Hi.
Yeah, spot of bad luck, I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm going to have to go. Would you be willing to pick up this conversation later in the week?
Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Happy to hear it. Also, Pigeon just knocked out my my OBS thing. There we go. All right.
Oh, no.
I'll talk to you shortly. Everything's fine. I'll see you in a bit, okay?
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry, lads. See you in a bit, too.